about a former professor by guest lecturing for a week in Birmingham, Alabama. It wasn't a big university or anything fancy, just a community college that needed someone to fill in for a few behavioral psych courses while their regular instructor was out recovering from surgery. I figured why not? Free trip, free meals, and a chance to hang out with my old college buddy Kyle. We hadn't seen each other since graduation 4 years earlier, and he lived just 20 minutes from the school. Kyle and I used to be close. Roommates for 2 years back in Tennessee, stayed up playing Xbox until sunrise, burning frozen pizzas and talking about what we'd do with our lives. He ended up in supply chain management. Not exciting, but steady work. He was renting a decent 2-bedroom apartment just outside the city near a gas station, a vape shop, and, conveniently, a 24-hour Walmart that sat 5 blocks away. "You can crash here," he said when I called to ask about hotels. "I'll clean the guest room. Still got that mattress you helped me haul up 3 flights of stairs back in 2006. It didn't take much convincing. The plan was simple. I'd lecture from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. Kyle worked second shift and got home around midnight. We'd hang out, unwind, maybe grab food. Honestly, the nostalgia of staying up late like we used to was kind of comforting. The first night we didn't do much. He rolled in around 12:30 a.m., tossed his keys on the counter, kicked off his boots, and cracked a beer. I was half asleep on the couch watching Planet Earth. "Still a night owl, huh?" He laughed. "Only when someone else buys the drinks," I shot back. We caught up for a couple of hours, played a few rounds of Mario Kart on his dusty old Wii, and ended up hungry around 2 a.m. "I usually hit the Walmart around the corner," he said, already grabbing his keys. "They restock shelves overnight. Kinda peaceful in there, actually." I shrugged. "Let's go." That first trip felt like any other grocery run. Quiet store, barely staffed, fluorescent lights buzzing above empty aisles. We wandered through the frozen food section, tossing in burritos and Red Baron pizzas, then stopped at the snack aisle arguing over what chips to get. It was calm, familiar, nostalgic even. We ended up doing the same thing the next 2 nights. We'd game until we were baked out of our minds, then get the munchies around 1:30 or 2, walk the quiet streets to the Walmart like it was some late-night pilgrimage, load up on junk food, then crash around 4 a.m. It became a ritual. Thursday night was different. Kyle got home later than usual, closer to 1:15 a.m. He looked stressed. "Rough shift?" I asked. He nodded, rubbing his face. "Someone busted a dock door trying to back in blind. Spent 2 hours helping the guy fill out reports. I'm dead." "You still down for Walmart?" He hesitated, then grinned. "Yeah, why not? I need more coffee and eggs anyway." So we headed out. It was colder than usual. I remember that specifically. The kind of sharp, silent cold where you could hear the crunch of gravel under your sneakers like it was echoing off the clouds. The parking lot was empty except for 2 cars. One beat-up sedan near the front doors, and a white van parked diagonally across 3 spots on the far side, back-facing the loading docks. "Nice parking job," I muttered. Kyle glanced at it. "That van's been here before. Same spot. You notice that?" "I work nights. I notice everything." Inside, the store was dead quiet. No music, just the hum of refrigerators and a dull buzzing overhead. We grabbed a basket and made our way to frozen foods again. The first weird thing happened in the bread aisle. We passed an older guy, maybe late 50s, long beard, camo jacket. He wasn't shopping. Just standing there, hands in his coat pockets, staring down the aisle like he forgot why he was there. Kyle gave him a polite nod. The guy didn't react. I whispered, "Friendly neighborhood cryptid." Kyle smirked, but said nothing. By the time we hit the snack aisle, the air felt off. I know how that sounds, too vague to be helpful, but it's the best way I can describe it. Like walking into a room just after someone had a fight. Charged. Still. I was looking at some cheddar jalapeno chips when I noticed a guy at the end of the aisle. He wasn't browsing, just watching. Late 30s, Buzz cut, dark hoodie, baggy jeans, pale. His arms were stiff at his sides, and his eyes were locked directly on us. At first I thought maybe I was in his way or something. I half smiled and gave a quick, "Hey." No reaction. I turned back to the shelf. Then Kyle said quietly, "There's another one behind us." I glanced over my shoulder. Sure enough, at the other end of the aisle stood a second guy. This one skinnier, taller, wearing a beanie and denim jacket. He wasn't looking at us. He was staring past us, directly at the first guy. "What the hell's going on?" I muttered. "They're not looking at us," Kyle said. I looked back and forth again. He was right. They were looking at each other, and neither of them blinked. "Let's bounce," Kyle whispered. I didn't argue. We turned to exit the aisle and took maybe 3 steps before I heard it. A voice, calm, cold. "You know why I'm here." I froze. The voice came from behind us, from the hoodie guy. Then came a second voice, flat and low. "You don't want to do this." A pause. Then almost simultaneously both of them moved. One guy reached into his waistband. The other ducked low. "Down!" I shouted, pulling Kyle with me. Population pop, pop, pop. Gunfire erupted, sharp and loud and somehow distant at the same time, like thunder in a tunnel. I hit the tile hard, my right elbow slamming into the floor as I dragged Kyle down with me. A bag of Doritos exploded above us, orange bits raining down. The aisle was chaos. Chips flying, shelves rattling, metal clanging. Kyle was yelling, something I couldn't make out over the ringing in my ears. We crawled. Instinct took over. I pulled us around the end cap and behind a display of laundry baskets. A bullet shattered a bottle behind us. Detergent spilled across the floor. Another volley of shots, 4, maybe 5, then silence. And then, footsteps, fast, fading. Someone was running. We didn't move. Not for what felt like minutes. Then we heard the fire exit alarm blare from the back of the store. Someone else ran. The second guy. Kyle finally spoke, voice cracking. Jesus Christ, I was still on the floor, my hands shaking. My elbow throbbed from the fall. "You good?" I asked, my own voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. "You?" I nodded back. We slowly stood up. The aisle looked like a war zone. Chips scattered, glass broken, black smears on the linoleum that might have been from someone's shoes. Or something worse. We made our way toward the front, keeping low, moving fast. A cashier we hadn't seen before burst out from behind the customer service counter. She was in tears, on her radio with someone, presumably her manager. We told her what we saw. She pointed toward the emergency exit and said the cops were already on the way. We stepped out into the cold air, ears still ringing. By the time the sirens came, the parking lot was lit up red and blue. 6, maybe 7 cruisers pulled in within minutes. An officer rushed us toward the perimeter and started asking questions. Descriptions, clothes, direction of travel, any weapons. We told them everything. They found 1 shell casing in the snack aisle, blood drops near the fire exit, but no bodies. One of the officers told us off the record that it looked like the guy in the hoodie might have taken one to the side but kept running. No trail to follow. The other one disappeared completely, likely out the front. I later learned from Kyle that the Walmart shut down overnight for 3 days after that. Management brought in counselors for the night staff. They put up some vague corporate poster about valuing safety and resilience, but no arrests, no follow-up, just gone. Kyle and I didn't go back. I flew home after my last lecture the next day, but I still think about it. A lot. It changed something in me. Not in some dramatic movie-like way. Just a quiet, constant tension. Whenever I walk into a 24-hour store now, I glance at the ends of every aisle. I scan people's hands. I never wear headphones. I never let my guard drop the way I did that night. And every time I hear a bag of chips crinkle too loud, I flinch. In a town where people disappear quietly, no one really notices when a man starts to rot. I never wanted to work retail again. After 3 years in logistics and one miserable stint at a call center, I told myself I was done with fluorescent lights and clock watching. But rent's rent, and when I lost my job last fall, desperation pushed me back behind a blue vest. That's how I ended up as a floor associate at East Bend Supercenter, basically a rebranded Walmart clone just outside Greenwood, Indiana. I was assigned to dry goods and pharmacy overflow, which meant I stocked shelves and fielded random questions about allergy meds I wasn't qualified to answer. Most of the time, the job was mindless. People in pajamas asking where the melatonin was, couples fighting over shampoo brands, crying kids throwing Skittles into the cart. None of it fazed me anymore. But what happened one Tuesday in early March is something I will never forget. Something that even as I type this out feels like a memory from a nightmare. It started like any other dead shift afternoon. 3:45 p.m. I was zoning an aisle in the health section, front-facing boxes so they look full. Everything felt ordinary. Fluorescent lights buzzing, a kid screaming somewhere near toys, the faint beeping of registers from the front. I was alone in aisle 16, adult diapers, heating pads, Epsom salts. It was one of those long, empty stretches of time where I could feel my brain turning to oatmeal. I had headphones in one ear, listening to a podcast, true crime, ironically, when I smelled something. It was foul, like rotting meat left in the sun mixed with old sewage and something chemical, the kind of smell that hits you in the back of the throat. I gagged a little, pulled my shirt collar over my nose and looked around. I thought maybe something spilled, or maybe someone's kid had an accident. Then I heard footsteps, slow, uneven, one heel dragging slightly like the person couldn't lift it fully. A man turned the corner into the aisle. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches or 6 feet 3 inches, and gaunt, with a long face and deep sunken eyes. His hoodie was oversized and grimy, sleeves fraying at the cuffs. Cargo pants that looked more like curtains than clothing hung loose around his frame. His left shoe was a boot, but the right foot was wrapped in what looked like layers of stained fabric or gauze. I instinctively stepped aside, plastered on a polite, customer service smile. But he didn't even look at me, just trudged forward, leaving behind that stench like a trail of invisible rot. I caught myself thinking something cruel. Jesus, man, take a damn shower. But then I saw his hand gripping the cart. His fingernails were black around the edges, not from dirt but something darker, as if the tissue underneath was dying. The skin on his knuckles was tight and shiny, stretched over bones like wax paper. That's when I realized something was really wrong with him. A month earlier, a different associate had quit without notice after finding a guy passed out behind the pet aisle. Turned out he was high and had shoplifted a bottle of cough syrup, then chugged it on the spot. It's not uncommon. East Bend gets its share of drifters, and our proximity to the freeway makes it a stopover for all kinds of people. But this man, he wasn't high. He wasn't belligerent. He wasn't talking to himself or shouting. He was focused, determined, walking like he had one thing on his mind and nothing else mattered. He turned into the short aisle leading to the pharmacy desk. I stayed where I was, but I could still see through the aisle end cap, vitamins and low-dose aspirin. There was a woman standing at the pharmacy counter ahead of him. She was holding a bottle of cough syrup and a prescription bag, chatting with the pharmacist, a petite woman named Jazz, who worked every Tuesday afternoon. I watched as the man got in line behind her, and the woman stiffened almost immediately. She half-turned, catching a whiff of whatever he was carrying with him. I saw her eyes twitch. She didn't say anything, but her lips pursed hard. When she got her stuff and hurried off, the man stepped up. And then everything changed. 5:01 p.m. I had drifted a little closer by then, pretending to check stock on the end cap. I couldn't hear all of it, but I saw Jazz lean forward slightly, her eyebrows knitting. She looked concerned. He seemed to be mumbling something, gesturing downward toward his leg. That's when he began rolling up his pant leg. Slow, deliberate. as if it took effort just to bend. Jazz leaned farther over the counter to look. I couldn't see his leg from where I stood at first, but I saw her reaction. She reeled back, covered her mouth, and in that moment everything in my gut twisted up. I moved toward the counter like I might need to help. I don't know why. It was just instinct. He peeled the cloth, gauze, sock, whatever, up past his calf. And that's when I saw it. A wound. Number. Not a wound. A hole. A gaping, wet crater where the flesh of his lower leg should have been. It was discolored, yellowish gray with dark green edges and something white glistening deep inside. I still don't know if that was bone or tendon. Flies buzzed around it. I hadn't even noticed until that moment. The smell, oh God, the smell, hit me again, stronger than before, like raw meat and ammonia and hot garbage. I stumbled backward, gagging, and almost dropped the vitamins I was holding. Jazz's voice rose. "Sir, you need to go to the hospital right now. This is serious. You could lose the leg. You could..." He shook his head, mumbled something again. "Sir, listen to me. You need an ambulance. This could be septic. Do you hear me? You could die from this." That was when I stepped forward. 5:04 p.m. "Hey man," I said gently, holding my phone out. "Do you want me to call someone? An ambulance, maybe?" He turned to me. His eyes were dull like waterlogged wood, and for a moment something flickered behind them. Not fear, not anger, just shame. "Don't," he said. His voice was low and raspy. "Please don't." Jazz spoke right over him. "Yes, call. Do it. He's not thinking straight. His leg is necrotic." Necrotic. I'd only ever heard that word in zombie games. I didn't wait. I hit 911. As I gave the dispatcher our location, the man stared at me. Not with hatred, but with this pleading sadness, like a stray dog that knows it's about to be put down. Then, before I could react, he pulled his pant leg down, turned around, and walked away. Just like that. No yelling, no running. Just walking with that uneven limp, the boot thudding on the floor, the soft flap of whatever covered the other foot. Jazz shouted after him. I did too, but he didn't turn back. 5:07 p.m. The EMTs arrived about 10 minutes later. We showed them the security footage. They said based on the wound's appearance and the man's condition, he might not have made it through the night. The smell alone, they said, indicated advanced infection. They canvassed the lot, checked the bus stop, even talked to a couple panhandlers out front. But the man was gone. Vanished. For weeks after, I kept checking local news sites. I looked for missing persons reports. Checked with the fire department. Nothing. No body turned up. No John Doe matching his description was found at any hospital nearby. It was like he just dissolved into the background again, like so many others do. But I remember his eyes. That shame. That quiet resignation. Like he knew he was past saving and all we were doing was dragging out the end. I caught the smell again, briefly. I was in the same aisle, organizing the same goddamn boxes of adult diapers. And for a second, just a second, I swore I smelled it. That rot, that faint whiff of ammonia and death. I dropped everything and ran outside. But no one was there. Some nights I wonder if he's still out there, hobbling through alleys, hiding in shadows, rotting piece by piece until there's nothing left of him but the smell. And the worst part? No one will remember him. No one will bury him. No one will mark the spot where he finally collapsed except maybe me. And now, you and... I was 20 and working at Walmart corporate the year everything changed. I wasn't anyone important, just a marketing temp in the summer internship program, one of those next-gen talent things they advertise on college job boards. Most of us were just eager, half-trained kids getting paid barely more than minimum wage and pretending we were on the ladder to something bigger. That summer they organized a company event, part training, part team building, part PR stunt. It was supposed to show that Walmart invested in its people. Everyone in our regional group was expected to attend. We were set to drive from the Bentonville satellite office down to a warehouse conference center near Jacksonville for a 3-day retreat. They split us into two 15-passenger vans. That's where this story really starts. We met early in the morning at the corporate lot. The air was heavy and sticky, typical Arkansas humidity. Everyone was half awake, lugging bags, sipping from gas station coffee cups. I stood off to the side with my buddy Marcus, one of the few people I actually liked from the program. Marcus was loud, always cracking jokes, loved comic books, and had this infectious, dopey laugh. He was the kind of guy who could make a room lighter just by walking in. I was the opposite. Quiet, always overthinking, always unsure if I belonged. "Yo," Marcus said, bumping my shoulder. "You think they're gonna make us do trust falls?" "I think they're gonna make us sit through 6 hours of PowerPoint and call it leadership training," I muttered. He laughed. "Bet. Loser buys dinner." We were supposed to be in the same van. But just as we were loading up, one of the supervisors, this guy named Ray, started pointing and rearranging people. "Hey, Marcus," he said, "why don't you ride in the other van? We're trying to even out the numbers." Marcus frowned. "I was with James." "Yeah, I know. It's just a quick reshuffle. You'll still be rooming together when we get there." Marcus gave me a look like, whatever, and headed to the other van. I followed him, but then Ray said, "Actually, hold up. James, you go with Van A after all." I screwed up the count. It was just a stupid little switch. Me back to the van I started in. Marcus going to the other one. Neither of us thought anything of it. It was just one of those forgettable logistical things that happen on corporate trips. We hit the road mid-morning, US 231 all the way down. It was a 5-hour drive, most of it through open fields, thick woods, and dead zones where even Spotify gave up. Around 5 p.m., we stopped in a tiny town off the highway for food. There was a McDonald's, a gas station, and a Dollar General. That was about it. Everyone piled out, stretching and laughing. I remember Marcus tossing fries at pigeons. I remember him saying he wanted to buy fireworks on the way back. We loaded up again around sunset, and for a while, everything felt normal. Then it got dark. The road between our last stop and Jacksonville cut through a long stretch of nothing, just miles and miles of blacktop, forest, and invisible swamps. No streetlights, no shoulders, barely any other traffic. Our van was in front. Marcus's van followed behind. I was dozing off against the window when our driver, a woman named Ellen, picked up her phone. She answered quietly, then suddenly swerved onto the gravel shoulder and stopped the van. "Stay here," she said. Her voice was shaking. We all looked around, confused. "What's going on?" someone asked. Ellen hesitated. "They crashed. The other van crashed." None of us knew what to say. For a moment, we just sat there, not moving, not breathing. Then Ellen yanked the van around and floored it back down the road. I swear she hit 90. We drove maybe 6 miles before we saw it. A wall of red taillights, trucks, semis. Dozens of them backed up for what looked like a mile. Some drivers were standing outside. People were pointing. A few were crying. Ellen rolled down her window. "What happened?" A guy in a John Deere cap just shook his head. "You don't want to see." She ignored him and pulled onto the grass shoulder. We crept past the line of trucks, one slow roll of tires over dirt and broken glass. That's when I saw the van, or what was left of it. It had rolled, completely flipped. One side was flattened, the windows blown out. The back doors had popped open, bags and papers scattered across the highway. There were people sitting on the grass, shaking, bleeding. A girl was sobbing into her phone. One guy had his arm bent completely the wrong way. Another kid, Devin, was screaming for someone to help him find his glasses. But what I saw next is what I still see when I close my eyes at night. Marcus, he was maybe 30 feet from the wreck, lying in the middle of the opposite lane. His body, Jesus, he was torn in half. I'm not exaggerating. I wish I was. His arms were bent at impossible angles. His face was pale, mouth open. His eyes, God, his eyes were open too. Just the whites. Like he was trying to see something above him. We found out later that he'd been wearing his seatbelt. But Marcus was thin. He slipped through it somehow, broke through the side window as the van rolled. He was thrown, not just into the median, but over it. He landed in the other lane, oncoming. An SUV hit him, didn't even slow down, didn't stop. No one ever found it. The girl driving the van, Caitlin, she'd crawled out just in time to see it happen. She said he was still alive. He'd lifted his torso with his arms, tried to move. She was screaming at him not to, but he couldn't hear her. And then the SUV hit him and he was gone. She kept repeating that over and over when the EMTs arrived. He was still moving. He was still trying to get up. The rest of the night was a blur. Police, flashing lights, sirens. We gave statements. I didn't speak at all until 3 a.m., just stared at the grass, still damp with blood. They finally got us to a hotel sometime before dawn. I didn't sleep. None of us did. The corporate office flew counselors down the next day. They called it a tragic accident. They offered us 2 days off and said the training would resume afterward if we felt ready. No one went. Marcus's family held a closed casket funeral. I didn't go. I couldn't. I kept thinking, that was supposed to be me. It was my seat. I was in that van. For 30 seconds. Just long enough to switch back, and it saved my life. I started having dreams where I could feel the seatbelt snapping, where I could hear my own bones breaking as I flew through glass and sky. Sometimes I woke up choking, sure I could still taste blood in my mouth. It's been 12 years. I work in logistics now. Still with Walmart, but I stay behind a desk. I avoid highways. I drive 10 under the limit. I don't take vans. I think about Marcus more than I'd like to admit. He was kind. He was funny. He didn't deserve what happened. Sometimes I still wonder, why him? Why not me? I've spent years trying to find a reason, but there isn't one. There's just this long, quiet road stretching out ahead and the sound of a voice telling you to switch vans. And that's it. That's the difference. Rest easy, Marcus. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never thought I'd end up in a blue vest. 10 years ago, I had a decent job working for a local manufacturing firm in Charleston. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. Then came the layoffs. Half the company gutted in a single week. 1 minute I was in the conference room talking about the new safety training, and the next I was carrying a cardboard box of my things out the front door with my boss mumbling, "We're so sorry." Rent didn't care about apologies. Neither did the utility companies. After burning through my savings in under 2 months, I started applying anywhere that was hiring. Office jobs didn't call back. I wasn't above retail. I just hadn't expected to be back in it at 34. But bills don't care about pride. That's how I ended up working at Walmart. The store was just off I-26, tucked behind a crumbling Sonic and a Dollar Tree. It was one of those older supercenters, flickering lights in the parking lot. A roof that always seemed to be leaking somewhere and lines that never ended. I figured I'd be stocking shelves at night or maybe running a register, but they threw me in lawn and garden. At first I was relieved. Compared to electronics or grocery, lawn and garden was peaceful. I liked the quiet, the smell of soil, the way old ladies would stop and talk about what they were planting that season. I could get lost watering plants and forget for a few hours that my life had gone completely off the rails. But there was one thing I didn't know. Lawn and garden didn't just sell plants. It was the department responsible for setting up every holiday display in the entire store. Christmas trees? Ours. Halloween decor? Ours. Back-to-school bins filled with binders and crayons? Still us. And that's where this story begins. It was mid-August, about a week before public schools went back in session. The air conditioning was barely holding up, and sweat stuck to my back even before my shift started. I clocked in at 6 a.m., grabbed my utility knife, and was sent to the front with a flat cart stacked with boxes labeled "Back to School." Notebooks, pens, folders, trapper keepers, your basic academic junk. My job was to fill the cardboard bins near the seasonal aisle before the 8 a.m. rush. I was kneeling, slicing open a box of mechanical pencils, when I heard a noise I still can't fully explain. It started as a screech, sharp, high-pitched, unnatural. It got louder, then deeper, then louder again, until it echoed off the concrete floor and rattled down the aisles like some wild animal had been let loose. It was the kind of sound that makes you freeze, makes your instincts flare up, fight or flight. I stood up fast and looked around. That's when I saw him. He looked to be about 8 years old, red-faced, sweaty, and built like a linebacker. I don't say that to be mean, just honest. The kid was big and loud, and absolutely losing his mind in front of the school supply bins. He wasn't just crying, he was screaming, red in the face, spit flying from his mouth. He was yelling something about a trapper keeper. "I want 3, he shrieked. 3, Mom! I said 3! The mother, probably in her early 30s, visibly pregnant, looked exhausted. Her brown hair was pulled into a lopsided bun, her tank top soaked with sweat. She was holding her belly and trying to calm him. "You already have one, Logan," she said softly. "That's all you need." "I want the Hello Kitty one too," he howled, stomping his foot so hard it made the entire aisle shake. Another kid, probably his little sister, stood off to the side, clutching a box of crayons, looking terrified. The dad was there too, tall, lanky, wearing a Gamecocks t-shirt and Crocs. He was scrolling on his phone like this wasn't even happening. People were starting to stare. I slowly stepped back toward my cart, hoping this wasn't going to escalate. It did. The boy let out a howl so guttural it sounded inhuman, then suddenly lunged forward and kicked his pregnant mother hard in the stomach. It was one of those moments that felt unreal as it happened. I stood frozen, my hands gripping the cart, watching her body fold. She dropped to her knees, gasped for breath, then slumped onto her side on the cold tile floor. "Oh my God," someone behind me yelled. I dropped to her side as 2 customers rushed over. The dad finally looked up from his phone. "What happened?" he asked blankly, not even running to her. "Your son just kicked her," I shouted, panic surging in my chest. "She needs help." The woman was moaning, clutching her side, eyes wide. One of the customers called 911 while the other yelled for a manager. And the kid? The little bastard calmly walked over to the trapper keeper bin and picked out all 3. His original, the Hello Kitty one, and one with a dinosaur, and tucked them under his arm like he'd just won a prize. He turned to his dad. "I'm hungry. I want chicken nuggets." And this man, this grown-ass man, looked at his wife being loaded onto a stretcher by EMTs and said nothing. "No, you're in trouble. No, what the hell did you just do?" Just nodded and said, "Okay, bud. Let's go." I watched them leave, the dad guiding him toward the McDonald's at the front of the store while their daughter cried silently into her arms. The incident was reported, obviously. I gave my statement, as did a few others. Management barely acknowledged it. No one ever told us what happened to the woman. There were rumors that she miscarried, but no one could confirm it. All I know is she never came back. And that kid? He did. I saw him 3 weeks later, tugging on his dad's sleeve near the toy aisle, acting like nothing had ever happened. I couldn't believe it. Still can't. You'd think that would have been the worst day of my time at Walmart, but you'd be wrong. That was just the loudest day. The real horror of working there was slower, quieter. It crept in over time. You watch the way people treat each other. You watch how some parents scream at their kids like they're animals. You watch old people beg for help finding a can of soup, while others walk by like they don't even exist. You clean up dirty diapers left on shelves, needles in bathroom stalls, chicken bones shoved behind packs of Gatorade. You start seeing people not as people, but as threats. One night, about 6 months after the Trapper Keeper incident, A woman walked into lawn and garden wearing nothing but a bathrobe and slippers. She was bleeding from her scalp and holding a baby carrier with no baby in it. She walked right up to me and whispered, "He's still in the ceiling. He's still up there. He follows me." I asked if she needed help. She screamed, bit me hard on the forearm, then ran out the emergency exit. We found out later she'd escaped a halfway house down the road and had dropped off her child at a fire station hours earlier. She didn't even remember coming to Walmart. I stayed there 2 years, longer than I should have. The day I left, I didn't even say goodbye. I just clocked out, took off the blue vest, and walked to my car. I sat there for 20 minutes and cried. Not because I was sad, but because I survived. People laugh about Walmart. They make memes. They joke about the people of Walmart and think it's just about weird outfits and odd customers. But the truth is, that place is a pressure cooker. It's where you see what people really are when they're pushed to the edge. Tired, broke, hungry, angry, humiliated. And some of them snap. Some of them drag their kids down with them. Some of them don't come back. And the ones who work there? We carry those moments like invisible bruises. Every screaming child, every broken family, every time you had to clean blood off tile or talk someone down from a panic attack in aisle 14, you take it home with you. It lives in your bones. Walmart didn't kill my soul, but it bruised it. Over and over again. Until I was no longer sure if I was human or just another part of the machine. I didn't know when it started feeling like survival instead of work. Maybe it was the third time I clocked out crying, or maybe it was when I stopped wearing makeup, not out of laziness, but because I didn't want to draw any more attention to myself than my blue vest and name tag already did. My name's Elena Maris, and this happened when I was 23, working at a supermart in the town of Pine Brook, Georgia. I'd moved there after community college to be closer to my older sister, who had just had twins and needed help. I applied to a few places, but Supermart called first. They said I'd start in general merchandise and shift around wherever I was needed. Back then, I was optimistic. The pay was awful, the hours were erratic, but I figured, how bad could it be? I had no clue. It wasn't long before I got used to the rhythm of the store, the beeping of checkouts, the artificial cheer and the overhead music. The weird regulars who came in daily just to loiter or flirt with cashiers too young for them. One of those regulars was a man named Curtis. Everyone knew him. 6'4", stocky, probably in his 40s, always wore a fishing vest and dark sunglasses, even indoors. His buddies sometimes came with him, forming this loud group of older men who flirted with all the younger staff. They'd call it joking, but it never felt funny. They'd hoot and make comments, and if someone told them to stop, they'd laugh it off like we were the ones overreacting. Curtis zeroed in on me right away. Maybe because I was quiet, or maybe because I smiled too much. My first mistake was not being rude from the start. "Where you from, pretty girl?" he'd say in his gravel voice, leaning too close. I tried the polite route. "Just around here." His fingers grazed my waist as he walked past. Thought so. Local girls got that softness to them. I told my floor supervisor the first time it happened. Jamie, mid-30s, frazzled mom of 3, sighed and said, "Yeah, that guy's always pushing it, but he buys a ton of stuff, so just don't be alone around him." That's when I realized how things worked. Curtis's touching got worse. He'd wait until I was alone restocking shelves. Sometimes I'd catch him in the toy aisle watching me. One day he came up behind me, grabbed a stuffed bear from the bin and pressed it into my lower back. "You should smile more, honey," he said. "You'd be perfect if you smiled." I stepped away, jaw tight. "Don't touch me." He lifted his hands mock innocently. "Didn't touch you, touch the bear. Lighten up." When I told Jamie again, she said, "Next time he crosses the line, I'll ask security to escort him out. But not ban him." She looked tired. "That's above my pay grade. Management says unless he does something illegal, we can't ban paying customers." I felt nauseated. A week later, Curtis slapped my butt, full on, like it was some frat party. I turned and slapped him across the face, hard. The shock on his face was almost worth it. "Feisty," he growled, stepping forward. I backed away, trembling. "Don't you ever touch me again." He laughed and walked out. Security escorted him out that night. Not banned, just out. I begged the manager, Ron, to take real action. Ron, who always smelled like stale cologne and acted like smiling was beneath him, said, "Look, Elena, I don't condone what he did, but customers spend money. You don't want to work retail? Maybe find something else?" He walked away, leaving me shaking in the break room. I wanted to quit right then, but I needed the money. I needed to help my sister. Saturday evenings were the worst shifts, chaotic, understaffed, and crawling with the worst kind of people. That night, I clocked out for my 15-minute break and went around the side of the building where the staff smoked. It was technically an alley, shielded from the front lot, and partially fenced off with dumpsters at the end. I lit a cigarette, the ritual calming my nerves. That's when I felt hands grab me around the waist. Strong hands, yanking me backwards, lifting my feet off the ground. Time slowed. I saw the edge of the dumpster coming closer. The cement. Heard the gravel shift under boots. I screamed and threw my head back, hard. It connected with a crunch. He dropped me, swearing. "Curtis." I spun around and kicked up full force, hitting him in the groin. Again, and again. He stumbled back, blood running from his nose, gasping like a fish out of water. I didn't stop. I lit another cigarette and burned it into his arm. He screamed. I spit in his face. I didn't feel like a person. I felt like rage in human form. Security arrived first, followed by cops. Curtis was moaning on the ground, clutching himself, one hand covering his burned arm. One of the security guys, Jason, immediately rushed to me. I was shaking so badly I dropped the cigarette. He grabbed me. He tried to take me somewhere. I gasped. He dragged me. I fought back. I had to. Jason helped me sit. The rest was a blur. I gave my statement. I remember the way the officer looked at me when I said I'd used a cigarette on him. "Self-defense is one thing," he muttered. "He dragged me," I shouted, tears springing out. Eventually, they cuffed Curtis, took him to the hospital first, then booked him. I didn't hear what he was charged with. Assault, maybe. Kidnapping attempt, I hoped. I didn't clock back in. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I just walked to my car and left. A few days later, I packed my bags and moved to Austin, Texas. My sister helped me find a job at a vet clinic. I've never worked retail again. I don't know what happened to Curtis. I don't care. I heard through someone that management got reshuffled months later, maybe even fired. But it doesn't matter, because they allowed it. Over and over again. Sometimes I still feel his hands around my waist when I close my eyes. Sometimes I still hear that laugh. But more than anything, I remember how quickly a normal job, just a minimum wage position in a fluorescent hellhole, turned into something life-threatening. And no one cared until it was almost too late. This happened, not just to me, to thousands of us in stores like Supermart and alleys like that one. Next time you see a retail worker looking exhausted or jumpy, maybe don't laugh it off. Maybe ask yourself what they've had to survive just to earn their paycheck. I was just trying to get home, that's all it was. I'd had a long day, long week really. The kind that makes your shoulders feel like cement and your mind wander even while you're driving. I had one last stop to make before I could finally crash for the night. Grab some cat litter, milk, and a frozen dinner from the Walmart in Clay Hollow, Kentucky. It's the only 24-hour store for miles, tucked behind a gas station and a sketchy pawn shop. I was a regular there, usually late at night when the aisles were quiet and the staff were too tired to care. It was past 11:30 p.m. when I pulled into the parking lot. A few stray carts were left scattered around, abandoned like always. One of them had rolled halfway into a spot near the entrance. The lot lights buzzed with that faint, high-pitched hum, and there was a damp chill in the air that clung to my hoodie. I remember thinking, just 10 minutes, in and out. I parked near the side entrance, grabbed my reusable bag from the passenger seat, and went inside. The greeter, Mr. Arnold, an old man who used to work at the local lumber mill, nodded at me like he always did. "Burnin' the midnight oil again, Ellie?" he asked, voice raspy but warm. "Always," I said, trying to smile. Inside was dead quiet, except for the muffled sound of someone restocking the soda aisle and the distant whir of the floor buffer near electronics. I moved fast, didn't browse, didn't check my phone, just grabbed the essentials. I think I spent maybe $23 total. By the time I got back to my car, the lot felt emptier than before. The air was heavier too, like that moment before a thunderstorm, even though the sky was perfectly clear. I didn't think much of it then, but as I pulled out of my spot and made the wide curve toward the exit road behind the loading dock, that's when it happened. A car, an older silver Nissan Altima, came out of nowhere, speeding through the lot in the wrong direction. I barely had time to hit the brakes. It cut me off so aggressively that my tires squealed. My seatbelt locked. My purse slid off the passenger seat and dumped onto the floor. I sat there stunned for a half second. The Altima stopped right in front of me, like it wanted me to hit it. The guy inside, white male, maybe mid-30s, scruffy, baseball cap pulled low, turned his head slowly and just stared at me. His passenger, another guy, bigger, bald, and wearing a sleeveless shirt despite the cold, leaned forward too, both of them now watching me like they were sizing me up. I couldn't see their plates, no lights on. I gave a quick shake of my head like, "Are you serious?" hoping they'd move. Instead, the driver grinned. Then he floored it. He sped off toward the side exit, tires screeching. I sat there another few seconds, heartbeat racing, before easing forward and making the right turn out of the lot. I wasn't going the same direction as them, at least I didn't think so. I turned down Halberd Road, the narrow strip that leads out past the old grain silos, heading toward my place about 10 minutes away. That's when I saw headlights in my rearview mirror. Same Altima, same guys. I didn't panic at first. Coincidences happen. But when they got closer, way too close, and started flashing their high beams over and over, I felt my stomach drop. They were tailgating me so close I couldn't see their headlights anymore, just the glare. Then the driver began weaving side to side, revving his engine, flashing lights in a pattern like he was trying to blind me. I sped up. So did they. I tapped my brakes lightly, hoping it would make them back off. It didn't. Instead, they accelerated and jerked their car up beside mine, window down. The guy in the passenger seat was shouting something, couldn't hear over the wind, but he waved something in the air. It looked like a tool, long, narrow, a screwdriver. That's when my brain clicked from confusion to survival. I wasn't in a safe area, no cops around. I didn't want to lead them straight to my house, so I made a quick left into a little gravel pull-off by an old bait shop that had been closed for years. I figured they'd just pass me, but they didn't. They turned in right behind me, skidding across the gravel, blocking my only exit. Shit, no. I locked my doors, slammed the gear into reverse to back up, but the Altima had parked at an angle, boxing me in. I could hear them yelling now. Both doors opened. One guy had the screwdriver out, the other just cracked his knuckles and jogged toward me with a sick kind of smile on his face. I fumbled for my phone. No signal. Of course. They were pounding on my windows now. The screwdriver guy tried to open the driver's door. Thank God I had locked it. When that didn't work, he stepped back, looked at the other guy and said, "Break it." The bald guy raised his elbow. I screamed, just reflex. But that scream carried. From behind the old bait shop, I heard footsteps, fast, heavy ones. Then more. Voices. 3 guys came running out from the back fence. Locals maybe, or just people who happened to be nearby. One of them had a flashlight. Another shouted, "Hey! What the hell are y'all doing?" My attackers froze. For a moment, everything paused. Then Screwdriver Guy yelled, "Go!" and both of them sprinted back to the Altima. Tires screeched again. They reversed, nearly hitting one of the strangers, and peeled out down the road. I was shaking so hard I couldn't even unbuckle my seatbelt. One of the strangers, older guy in a camo jacket, knocked on my window and asked if I was all right. I nodded. Barely. He told me he'd seen the car pull in and thought it looked weird. They'd just been hanging out behind the shop smoking when they heard yelling. "You need us to call someone?" he asked. I finally managed to say yes. He let me use his phone to call 911. The sheriff showed up 15 minutes later, long after the Altima was gone. I gave a report, described the guys as best I could. They asked if I got the plate. No, I didn't. No cameras in that lot either. It was a dead end. Nothing ever came of it. For weeks after, I was paranoid every time I drove at night. I stopped going to that Walmart alone, started carrying pepper spray, got a dash cam installed, kept my doors locked, even when pumping gas. And to this day, when I see someone flash their headlights behind me, even just for a second, I still flinch. Because I know how fast a regular night can turn into something else. Something that doesn't let you sleep the same way ever again. I was 19 when I started working the overnight shift at a Walmart on the edge of town in Elridge, Kentucky. A quiet place that got a lot louder after dark. You'd think Walmart at 3 a.m. would be boring, but it was anything but. The things I saw there, I could fill a book. But this isn't about me, not really. It's about someone I worked with. Someone who never should have been hired in the first place. His name was Travis. It started like any other night. The store had that artificial lemon scent they pumped in before closing hours, mixed with mop water and burnt pizza from the deli. I clocked in, tightened the back brace they made us wear, and went to meet up with the rest of the night crew in the stockroom. That's when I first saw him. He was standing off to the side, arms crossed, staring at nothing in particular. He had this jagged buzz cut like he'd done it himself with a pair of dull clippers, and he was already sweating through his gray Walmart vest. "Hey," I said, offering a hand. "You new?" He looked down at my hand like I'd offered him a dead mouse, then muttered, "Name's Travis." That was it. No smile, no handshake, just that weird hollow stare. I should have trusted my gut right then and there. The first few nights he barely talked. But when he did, it was strange. Not shy strange, off strange. Like the time we were stocking sporting goods and I joked about needing a helmet to survive the job. He said, dead serious. I shot myself in the head once. Didn't do much. I laughed, thinking it was some dark sarcasm. But he wasn't joking. "Went in right here," he said, tapping his temple. "But it missed everything important. They say I'm lucky." He smiled for the first time then. It chilled me more than anything. October rolled around, and the store started prepping for its half-hearted Halloween setup. Plastic pumpkins, cheap costumes, knockoff candy. Travis came to work that week with black thread sewn through his lips. You read that right, sewn shut, with needle and thread. We didn't even recognize him at first. He stood in the break room, grinning behind those bloody, jagged stitches. Nobody said anything for a few seconds. We just stared. He scribbled something on a piece of paper and held it up. In the spirit of the season. Someone finally called management, but Travis talked his way out of it. Said it was performance art. Said it didn't violate the dress code because it wasn't a costume. Our supervisor, Paul, was this spineless guy who hated confrontation. So he just sighed and said, "Fine. Just wear gloves if you're gonna bleed." And Travis? He wore gloves. He'd vanish sometimes during shift. No one ever saw him leave, but he'd pop up in the weirdest places. One night I went to the back to restock motor oil. It was around 2:45 a.m. I rounded a corner and there he was, kneeling in the middle of aisle 14, the knife from the hunting section in his hand, running the blade slowly across his palm like he was checking how sharp it was. I froze. "Travis?" I asked quietly. He looked up at me, smiled that same chilling smile and said, Don't worry. I'm not going to hurt you. I like you. I backed away slowly, my stomach churning. He was never fired for that, said it was a box cutter accident. Security footage mysteriously glitched that night. We found out later he was swallowing whole packs of Coricidin, Triple C, like candy. It was a known over-the-counter high, especially with teens, but he wasn't a kid. He was in his late 20s. He'd show up glassy-eyed, twitching, talking to people who weren't there. One time I caught him whispering to the mannequin in women's apparel. He had his hand on its plastic shoulder like they were sharing a secret. They replaced parts of me, you know, he told me later that night, completely unprompted. What do you mean? Doctors? Government? Doesn't matter. They took pieces out and filled me with other things. Want to see the scar? I said no. I wish I hadn't said anything at all. The worst night started in the parking lot. We were on lunch break, sitting on the curb eating vending machine sandwiches. A cop car pulled up out front. Not unusual. We had late-night shoplifters all the time. But Travis stiffened when he saw them. They're here for me, he muttered. They always are. Then he stood up, walked right up to the cruiser, and headbutted the cop through the open window. Just like that, they tackled him, slammed him on the asphalt. He didn't fight. He laughed the whole time, blood pouring from his forehead, his eyes rolling back like it was some kind of high. We thought that was it. Thought he'd be gone for good. He was back a week later. Apparently, he had mental health paperwork and threatened a discrimination lawsuit if they didn't reinstate him. Paul just shrugged and gave him his vest back. For all his madness, Travis had money. I don't know how. He barely worked his full shifts, spent most of it wandering, and yet always had wads of $100 bills in his pocket. One time, he broke a CD I lent him, an old Nirvana bootleg I cared about. The next day, he handed me a new one and gave me $300 for the inconvenience. I didn't want it, but I took it. And that scared me too. Because when someone like Travis gives you something, you don't say no. I left that job after 6 months. Couldn't take the stress. I still think about it more than I should. Travis added me on Facebook a few years later. Sent a message every now and then. Always friendly. Always supportive. I heard your song. Real good stuff. Still got your back always. If anyone ever messes with you, I'll bury him. Sometimes I respond with a thanks. Sometimes I don't reply at all. He still shows up to gigs if I'm nearby. Just sits in the back, watching, smiling. Looking back, I don't think Travis was evil. I think he was damaged in ways most people can't even begin to understand. A mix of untreated mental illness, drug use, trauma, and maybe just something fundamentally broken. But he liked me. And that's the only reason I'm probably still here. People talk about guardian angels. Mine just happens to be a self-mutilating, unkillable Walmart stalker with a bloody grin and a head full of conspiracies. And you know what? I'd rather have him on my side than against me. Even now, when I get a message from him at 2 a.m., I feel two things. A deep, gnawing dread, and a strange, unsettling comfort. Because in a world full of monsters, it's better to have one that's obsessed with protecting you. I never used to be afraid of going to work. I didn't love it. Who loves stocking shelves at 3 a.m. in a fluorescent freezer box filled with cold tile and colder customer complaints? But it was a job. I needed the money. Rent doesn't pause when you're tired. This was in Camden Falls, a mid-sized town off Highway 18 in western Kentucky. Not much to see there except the super Walmart, a few gas stations, and a rundown diner called Margot's, where the waitresses called you Han and always smelled faintly of menthols. I got hired on night shift after my cousin Jeremy, who worked backstock, put in a word for me. Said they needed dependable people for freight and overstock. I didn't mind the hours. I preferred them. Quieter, less drama. That changed when he got transferred in. His name was Brent, and I'll never forget the first time I saw him. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I was rotating cans in aisle 7, and the damn radio was playing Sweet Home Alabama for the third time that night. I was on my knees organizing green beans when he walked past me and deliberately kicked one of the cans I'd already stacked, sent it rolling under the shelf. He didn't say anything, just smirked. Dirty blonde hair like straw and eyes that didn't match his smile. Something was off about him from the jump. He had this way of hovering, standing just a little too close, staring a little too long. New guy? I asked Jeremy that morning when we clocked out. Yeah, he muttered. Transferred from Mount Auburn store. Got in some trouble over there, I heard. What kind of trouble? Jeremy hesitated. He broke another associate's nose. Said it was an accident during unloading, but what? He laughed about it. From that point on, Brent made his presence known. He was loud, aggressive, always looking for a reaction. He'd smack boxes out of people's hands, scream lyrics in the break room, slap the vending machine when it didn't work. The managers, especially Doug, the overnight lead, just brushed it off. Brent's just high energy, Doug once said. Yeah, I muttered. So is a meth lab. But nobody listened. And slowly, he zeroed in on me. I was microwaving noodles during our 2 a.m. break when he walked into the break room wearing a full football helmet. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke. Then, without saying a word, he ran full speed and slammed his head into the side of mine. It felt like lightning exploded behind my eyes. I fell off the bench, instantly dizzy, and my vision tunneled. The room felt sideways. What the hell? I croaked, holding my temple. He laughed. Damn, you dropped like a sack of potatoes. I could hear some of the others laughing too, nervous chuckles, but nobody did anything. Nobody helped. I staggered to my feet and left the break room. I called off the rest of the shift and went to urgent care. The diagnosis? Concussion. I reported it the next day, told the manager, showed the note, even gave the nurse's number. Doug's response? Well, it sounds like he was just playing around. That was when things turned dark. Brent started taunting me, whistling whenever I walked past, blocking my way in the stockroom, humming the Monday Night Football theme. Real sick stuff. I'm not scared of you, I told him once. He grinned. You should be. I started having anxiety attacks before work. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I dreaded going in, but I needed the money. I kept showing up. The final straw came a week later. It was 3:17 a.m. I had just finished cleaning up a spill in the dairy section and went to drop the mop off in the back closet. As I turned the corner near receiving, he was there. Hey, he said. I ignored him. You think you're better than me, huh? Brent growled, suddenly stepping forward. Back off, I warned, heart thudding. But he didn't. He shoved me. Hard. I stumbled, hit the concrete floor, and before I could move, he was on top of me. I screamed, kicked, clawed. Get off! I can't breathe! His face was inches from mine, spit flying, his hands pressing on my shoulders. I was flailing, absolutely panicked. I genuinely thought, this is it. He's going to kill me right here in a Walmart stockroom and nobody will even care. And then, hey! It was Jeremy. He'd come around the corner looking for shrink wrap and saw the whole thing. He tackled Brent off me. Brent got up, stormed off, and vanished into the back exit. Cops were called. I gave my statement. Jeremy backed it up. They fired Brent that same morning. You'd think I'd feel relief. But I didn't. I felt watched. For weeks, I parked closer to the building, constantly checking over my shoulder. I had dreams about him standing at the end of the aisle. One time I thought I saw him sitting in a truck across the parking lot, just staring at the store. It turned out to be someone else, but the fear stayed. Doug gave a half-hearted apology. Said, no one expected it to go that far. I never forgave him, or myself, for not walking out the first time Brent crossed the line. I quit Walmart 2 months later. I still get headaches. Still flinch when someone raises their voice. Still think about how close I came to being just another name in a news article. But I survived. Barely. I wasn't supposed to work that Sunday. It was Mother's Day 2015, and I had originally requested it off to take my mom out for lunch. Nothing extravagant, just a diner in town and some peace and quiet. But when the morning schedule went out the Friday before, my name was still printed in the customer service slot, and I knew exactly why. 13 people had already called out by then, mostly moms, of course, and 5 others hadn't even answered their phones for days. I was 19, didn't have kids, and always showed up, so they plugged me in. No explanation, no heads up. I was too tired to argue and too broke to risk getting written up. The shift started just after 9 a.m. at Boxmoor, a big box store chain that was basically Walmart's evil twin. Smaller town, smaller store, worse pay. By 10:30, the customer service line stretched nearly halfway to the bakery, and I was the only person behind the counter. Every few minutes, someone would yell about the line, about the heat, about the gift cards not scanning. My radio buzzed nonstop, and of course, the air conditioning was barely working. I kept looking over at the clock, hoping for lunch, hoping someone would show up, hoping, hell, praying, I'd get even 5 minutes to sit down. That's when she approached. An older woman, blue hair perfectly curled, wearing a gaudy, world's best Nana shirt. She slapped her receipt on the counter like it was an accusation. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. 30 minutes in line? On Mother's Day? What kind of store runs this poorly? I wanted to say, "Ma'am, I agree with you," but I just nodded and offered a fake apology. That's when my earpiece crackled. "Cass, do you see the kid in the orange shoes over by the card aisle?" It was Rob, one of our overnight security leads. He rarely spoke on the radio unless something serious was happening. I turned my head and scanned the crowd. Sure enough, a small boy stood alone by the rows of overpriced greeting cards, rocking back and forth on his heels. Orange Nikes, Velcro straps, maybe 5 or 6 years old. I could tell from his slouched posture and darting eyes that something was off. "Yeah, I see him. Is he lost or something?" I whispered back into the mic. "Number, stop him. He crapped himself, and he's tracking it all over. I'm trying to locate his mom on the cameras." I paused mid-sentence with the old woman, my mouth half open. I turned fully toward the kid, and that's when I saw it. His shorts were stained dark, his legs streaked, and small smears marked the white tile floor in a path leading back toward toys. The smell hit a second later, faint at first, but growing stronger. The old woman recoiled. "Oh, for heaven's sake!" I stepped out from behind the counter and approached the kid gently. "Hey, buddy," I said as softly as I could. "Are you okay? Is your mom here with you?" His eyes were wide, red around the rims like he'd been crying, but he wasn't anymore. He just looked dazed, embarrassed, hollow. He didn't say anything but let me take his hand without protest. We walked slowly toward the service desk while I tried not to breathe through my nose. "I'm gonna get you cleaned up, all right? Don't worry. You're okay." He didn't respond. About 10 minutes passed. I got him settled in a quiet corner near the returns area, wrapped him in a towel from Home Goods, and gave him a water bottle while trying to reassure him. A young associate named Nina ran off to grab some wipes and a fresh outfit from Kids Apparel, but no sign of the mom. Then our head of security, Trevor, walked past. "Trevor," I called out, "did you find his mom?" He didn't answer, didn't even look at me. He just kept walking toward the front doors with a glassy-eyed expression, like he was sleepwalking. Something about the way he moved made my stomach twist. I glanced over at the camera guy, Dylan, who had now come out from the back to sit with the boy. He gave me a grim look and said, "Cass, don't go near the restrooms." "What? Why?" "Just don't." But I couldn't leave it alone. I made my way down the main aisle, passing clearance bins and snack pallets until I saw the cluster of flashing lights just outside the women's bathroom. 2 paramedics, 1 officer. Trevor standing by the door, pale and sweaty. I caught the eye of one of the cashiers who had snuck over to see what was happening. Did she fall or something? The girl swallowed hard. She OD'd. They found a needle in the stall. Number no way. Wait, I said, my voice catching. The boy's mom? She didn't answer, just nodded. I backed away slowly and returned to the service desk. I stared at the little boy, now in clean clothes and sipping water through a bendy straw Nina had found. Dylan was trying to coax out a name, but the kid stayed silent. No one told me what to say to him. How do you explain to a child that the woman who brought him here, left him here, probably didn't mean to, but died here? The cops stayed for about an hour. We answered questions. I signed a statement. I watched from a distance as the paramedics rolled out the stretcher with the sheet drawn over her body. She was young, maybe 30. Messy hair, track marks visible even from where I stood. A cheap pink hoodie with the zipper stuck halfway down. It looked like she'd tried to wedge the stall door shut with her purse. Probably didn't want anyone finding her until she'd come back down. But she never came back. By the time Child Protective Services arrived, the store had gone quiet. It was early afternoon. No more yelling customers, no more Nana shirts, just a weird emptiness that hung over everything. We gave the boy some crayons and a coloring book. I knelt next to him as he drew a lopsided truck. I told him he was brave, even though I didn't know if that helped. When the social worker arrived, she knelt too. She smiled at him. She took his hand. And just like that, he was gone. I stayed behind that counter another 4 hours before my shift ended. I didn't cry until I got home. I didn't even take off my name tag before collapsing on the floor of my apartment and just breaking. It wasn't just the death, or the kid. It was all of it. The indifference, the chaos, the silence that came afterward. The way no manager offered us so much as a break after it happened. They said, "That was tragic," then turned around and asked me to void a return for a $7 pack of socks. I worked at Boxmoor for another 11 months after that. I don't know why. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I wanted to believe things would get better. But the truth was, every Sunday after that felt heavier. Every time a kid wandered into toys alone, I held my breath. Every time I cleaned up a spill in the bathroom, I winced. Every time someone complained about a long line, I remembered the blue-haired woman and bit my tongue. I never saw the boy again. No follow-up, no name, no obituary for his mother in the local paper. Just a quiet tragedy folded into the mess of retail life. The worst part? They restocked the greeting cards by the next morning, like nothing ever happened. I was working the evening shift at Walmart the night it happened. It was April 2019, and I'd been at that store for just under 6 months. I was 24, stuck between college and figuring out my life, doing part-time shifts at the Walmart in Willow Creek, a mid-sized town in Georgia, with nothing much to do and nowhere good to go after 9 p.m. I worked the GM side, general merchandise. That night I was doing returns in aisle A18, which runs parallel to the condiments section. It was the kind of shift where time moves like syrup, and all you can think about is how long until your next break. The store wasn't busy, just a few people wandering in after work, grabbing frozen dinners or cat litter. The loudspeakers buzzed with pop music set way too loud, and the lights overhead flickered slightly like always. I was stacking misplaced candles back on the end cap when I noticed someone standing on the other side of the aisle divider in the sauces section. At first, I didn't think anything of it. From the corner of my eye, it was just another customer. A woman, maybe mid-40s, drenched hoodie, bare feet. Wait, bare feet? I glanced again. Yup. No shoes. Black, cracked soles, ankles swollen. She was standing right in front of the wall of hot sauces, the top shelf where we kept the Ghost Blaze, Widow's Flame, and other extreme heat stuff. I wasn't going to say anything at first. People come in barefoot all the time, usually homeless or high, but something about the way she was moving made my stomach knot. She was holding one of the bottles, turning it slowly in her hand. Her lips were moving. No phone, no earbuds, just her, talking to the bottle. I walked over slowly, not out of nosiness, but instinct. I worked retail long enough to know when something's off, and she was more than off. She was shaking, hard. Her hoodie was soaked, not just from rain, but sweat. "Ma'am," I said quietly, "you okay?" She looked up. Her eyes were bloodshot, not tired, raw, like she'd been crying for days. Her cheeks were soaked, not just tears. Her whole face was dripping. She didn't answer, just looked at me. And then she opened the bottle. Before I could even say anything else, she tilted it back and started chugging it. "Wait, hey, stop!" She drank the Ghost Blaze like it was water. Thick red liquid streamed down her chin, onto her shirt. She swallowed and coughed, gasping for air between gulps. She was shaking so hard I thought she might collapse. I rushed forward but stopped short of touching her. "Ma'am, Jesus, you can't do that. Are you okay?" She dropped the bottle. Her knees buckled and she dropped into a squat right there on the floor. She wrapped her arms around her stomach and groaned. Loud, like she was in labor. That's when I got on the walkie. "This is Cassie in grocery. I need assistance in aisle A19. I've got a customer in distress. Medical, I think. She just drank an entire bottle of hot sauce. The ghost pepper kind. She's sweating and shaking." There was a pause. "Copy that. I'm on my way," came the reply. That was Dawn, our assistant manager for the night. I looked back at her. She was gasping, eyes wide, hands shaking, lips turning pale. And then she said something I'll never forget. "It won't burn if you deserve it." I blinked. "What?" She said it again. "It won't burn if you deserve it." Her stomach convulsed. She groaned again and vomited right there on the tile. It was red and thick, mixed with yellow foam. The smell hit me instantly. Vinegar, bile, something metallic. I stumbled back, covering my nose. Dawn came running with another team lead, Myra. They took one look at her and called 911. She was crying now. Softly. Like a kid. Her hands clutched her stomach, and she rocked back and forth. She was still sobbing when the paramedics arrived. They loaded her onto the gurney while she mumbled the same thing over and over. "It won't burn if you deserve it." I stood there frozen. Dawn tried to reassure the other customers. Myra handled the cleanup. I went into the break room and sat there for 20 minutes with my head between my knees. The weird part? She came back, 2 weeks later. It was a Thursday night again. Same shift, same aisle. I was restocking chips when I saw her out of the corner of my eye. This time she was wearing flip-flops and clean clothes. Looked better, healthier. But it was definitely her. I watched her walk to the same shelf. She stood there and stared at the hot sauces. For almost 30 minutes. Didn't touch them, didn't speak. Then she left. I told Don, and he said to just keep an eye on her but not approach unless she started doing anything dangerous. She came back 4 more times. Always on a Thursday. Always around 7:30 p.m. Never bought anything, never said a word. Just stood there in front of the sauces. We started calling her Blaze Lady. Most of the younger cashiers joked about it, said maybe she was on TikTok or doing some weird spiritual thing. Some thought she was pranking the store. I didn't joke. I couldn't, because I saw something in her eyes that I recognized. Pain. Her story came out months later. One of the older ladies who worked in apparel, Gina, heard it through her cousin, who worked at the hospital. The woman's name was Elaine Moss. She'd lost her 13-year-old son in a fire the year before. A kitchen fire. Started when he was trying to make wings. Oil, stove, something with a bottle of hot sauce. He got trapped behind a door while the flames spread. She was outside in the yard when it started. She couldn't get to him in time. He burned alive. She'd spent 3 days in the psych ward after the incident at our store. They said she'd tried other things before that. Self-harm, starvation. But drinking the hot sauce was new. A new way to punish herself. The last time I saw her, it was different. She came in just before close. I was sweeping near the registers. She didn't go to aisle A19 this time. She came to me, walked straight up to me, holding a bottle of Widow's Flame, unopened. sealed. She held it out to me. "You can put this back," she said, voice calm. "I don't need it anymore." I didn't say anything, just nodded. Then she smiled, a little, sad smile. "Tell them I'm okay now. I won't come back again." She turned and walked out into the night, and true to her word, she never did. Some nights, I still think about her, about the pain people carry, about how sometimes the hurt gets so deep it spills out in ways that don't make sense to anyone else. I don't work at Walmart anymore. I finished my pharmacy tech program and moved on. But I never forgot Elaine Moss. Never forgot how grief looked standing barefoot on tile. Never forgot what she said. "It doesn't burn anymore." I didn't even want that job at first. Walmart was supposed to be temporary, just a stopgap until I could find something better. I'd moved to Lakewood, Florida after a rough breakup and was crashing with my cousin Kendra until I got on my feet. I figured I'd work nights, save up, and start fresh. Simple. That first week felt like a blur of price checks, returns, and awkward greetings at the door. I worked the customer service counter and sometimes covered electronics or cosmetics, wherever they needed help. Nothing too stressful. The team was mostly friendly, a mix of high schoolers, older women, and a few people just trying to get by like me. It was just another Thursday when it happened. I was working the returns line around 7:45 p.m., busy but not slammed. I had my name tag on, Isla, in bold blue letters, and I remember being mid-sentence with a woman returning a dented laundry basket when someone said, "Hey, Isla. Wow. It's been forever." I looked up and saw this guy standing just a few feet from the counter, wearing jeans, a camo hoodie, and scuffed boots. Late 20s, maybe early 30s, balding but still had a baby face. There was a weird familiarity in his eyes, but I couldn't place him. "It's me, Lucas," he said with a short laugh. "Lucas Gallagher, from Gulfside High?" Then it clicked. Gulfside High, senior year. He'd been a quiet kid, always sat in the back, barely spoke. I had a vague memory of him being in my earth science class. We never hung out. "Oh wow, yeah. I remember," I said politely. "It's been a long time." "Yeah, totally. You look exactly the same though." "Wild," he said. He didn't buy anything. Just chatted for a minute, asked where I'd been, what I was up to. Nothing alarming. Maybe a little awkward, but not creepy. He smiled as he left, gave me a little wave and said, "It's good seeing you again. Hope to catch you around." That night, I got a friend request on Facebook from him. I didn't think much of it. I accepted. I figured whatever, he was harmless. I was wrong. At first, he just liked some old posts, like way old from 2 or 3 years back. Then he started commenting things like, "Beautiful as ever. Crazy how I always knew you'd turn out this perfect. We should catch up. Coffee sometime?" Then came the messages. They started off friendly. "Was really cool seeing you again. I always wanted to talk to you back in school but never had the guts. You were my dream girl back then, still are." I didn't reply at first, just gave the generic thumbs up once. But within a day he was messaging constantly. Then my friend Max sent me a screenshot. Lucas had sent him a friend request. So had my coworker June and my cousin Kendra. Even a guy I hadn't talked to in 2 years. That's when I got nervous. How did he get my number? The text came in at 10:33 p.m. that Friday. Just a simple, "Hey Isla, hope I'm not bugging you. Wanted to say I had a dream about you last night, lol." I froze. My number wasn't on Facebook and I hadn't given it to him. Then my phone rang. It was him. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, another text. "Why aren't you answering?" "Did I say something wrong?" I replied, keeping it neutral. "Hey, I think you're a nice guy, but I'm seeing someone and I don't think we should keep chatting like this. I hope you understand." He didn't take it well. The next week I saw him 3 times. Once at the coffee shop near my place. He waved at me like we were close friends. Once when I was shopping at Target, he appeared in the next aisle and said, "Guess we think alike, huh?" Once in the Walmart parking lot, just leaning against his car, waiting. My manager, Diego, noticed me acting weird and pulled me aside. "Everything good, Hila?" I just nodded and said I was fine. I didn't want to make drama. I'd only been there a few weeks, but I wasn't fine. Then came the email. I still have it saved. It was 6 paragraphs long. He wrote about how he used to watch me in high school, how he always knew we were meant to be. He mentioned the names of guys I was friends with and accused me of letting them in when I barely gave him a chance. He said things like, "You smile at strangers but act like I'm the weird one. You belong with me. I feel it. I've always felt it. You'll regret making me feel invisible." He knew my schedule. He wrote, "Mondays you get off at 9. Wednesdays you always go to the gym. Fridays, Taco Bell after your shift. I see you. I'm always near." I felt like I was choking. I told Kendra everything. She freaked. Helped me save all the messages, screenshots, emails. She made me file a police report. The officer I spoke with, Officer Warren, was calm but firm. "You did the right thing coming in," he said. "This isn't just creepy, it's stalking. He's watching you, he's threatening you. We can file for a protective order." Lucas was called in for questioning. I heard he denied everything, claimed I was messing with him and that I'd let him on, said we'd been reconnecting, said I was playing games. He got a warning, a restraining order. That's it. But it didn't stop. I started seeing his car outside the gym. One night I walked outside after my shift and saw a single flower taped to my windshield with a note. "You can't stop fate." The security footage was useless. He wore a hat, kept his head down. I called the cops again. They documented everything but said without proof he was violating the order, they couldn't arrest him. I didn't sleep much for weeks. I changed my number, deleted Facebook, started carpooling with Kendra, got rides home from coworkers. I even asked to switch shifts just to throw him off. One night after a double shift, I left work with Diego. He offered to walk me out since the lot was mostly empty. That's when we saw the car. A beat-up gray sedan, engine running, headlights off, parked across from the entrance. Diego narrowed his eyes. "That your stalker?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The car sped off when Diego started walking toward it. That was the last time I saw Lucas. I don't know what changed. Maybe the threat of arrest finally scared him. Maybe someone got through to him. Maybe he just found someone else to fixate on. All I know is, he disappeared. I still check over my shoulder sometimes. I still flinch when my phone rings from an unknown number. I still keep pepper spray on my keychain. Working at Walmart was supposed to be temporary, but some things don't leave you when the shift ends. I never liked going to Supermart on Sundays. Not because of crowds or long lines, I could deal with those. It was the kind of people the place attracted after dark. See, Westbourne might sound like a sleepy Midwestern town, the kind where folks know their neighbors and leave their doors unlocked, but that's just the part the travel brochures sell. The other side of it, the part tourists don't see, is cracked pavement, meth clinics near gas stations, and people who mumble to themselves at 4 in the afternoon. It was late summer, I remember that clearly. Hot even after sunset. I'd been running errands all day and completely forgot I was out of dish soap, deodorant, and those little face wipes I used to feel slightly more human after a 10-hour shift. Supermart was the only place open, so I pulled into the lot around 9:45 p.m. I parked near one of the side entrances. The big sodium lights overhead buzzed and bathed the cracked lot in that sickly orange hue. The store was unusually quiet. I remember thinking it was nice, peaceful even. I saw an older man pushing a cart full of Gatorade and a kid holding a balloon as his mom barked into her phone. Just another night. But there was someone else. Someone I noticed the second I got out of my car. He was standing near the cart return, maybe 20 feet away. Short guy, maybe 5 feet 2 inches if that. Bald, scruffy beard like he hadn't shaved in weeks. He wore a dirty green jacket despite the heat and had on shoes that didn't match. He was pacing in tight circles, muttering under his breath. I didn't catch the words at first. Thought maybe he was just talking on Bluetooth or mentally rehearsing a grocery list. But when I walked closer, I realized he wasn't holding anything. His eyes were wide, glassy. He limped with every step, like one leg wasn't bending right. And the words, Jesus, the words were frantic. Mary said it was the tooth, but it ain't the tooth, it's the blood, you smell it, don't you? I slowed my pace, not stopped, not scared yet. I've worked in downtown shelters. I've seen people tweak out or spiral before. Most times they're just noise and shadows. You walk by, you don't make eye contact, and they leave you alone. But not this one. The moment I passed about 3 feet from him, he spun so fast I didn't even have time to react. And then wham! He punched the woman directly behind me. One clean, horrific punch straight to her face. She crumpled like paper, the phone flying out of her hand. I heard her head smack the pavement, and that sound, the crack of bone on concrete, haunted me for months. I froze. Everyone did. That sick silence, you know? The kind where time just stops because your brain can't compute what you've just seen. Then, like someone pressed play on a nightmare, he bolted toward a tall guy in a red hoodie near the cart corral. The man must have been at least 6 feet 3 inches, built like a linebacker, but the bald guy lunged at him like a feral animal, wrapping his arms around his waist and dragging him to the ground. And then came the screaming. "Can you feel this now, Mary? Can you?" He was headbutting the guy. Over and over. Blood sprayed the pavement like a hose. The taller man flailed, tried to push him off, but the smaller guy had some kind of demonic strength. Each headbutt echoed through the parking lot like a gunshot. You could hear bones shattering. I don't know when I started moving again. Some part of me went into survival mode. I grabbed my phone, ducked behind a pillar, and dialed 911. "Supermart on Greystone Avenue," I whispered, trying not to sob. "There's a man attacking people in the parking lot. He's covered in blood. Please hurry." Across the lot, 2 older men, maybe in their 60s, tried to intervene. Big mistake. One got shoved so hard he smacked into a cart rack and didn't get back up. The other tried swinging a plastic bag at the attacker's head, but the bald man caught it, yanked him forward, and slammed his face into a car hood. The worst part? He was smiling. A blood-drenched, toothy grin, like all of this was a game. He stepped back arms wide, looking at the chaos he'd created as if he were waiting for applause. "You see it now, Mary. You see it," he howled, spit flying from his lips. By the time the sirens came wailing down Greystone, he was foaming at the mouth, like actual foam. His face and hands slick with blood. Some of it his, most of it not. He tried to charge one of the cop cars when it pulled in, screaming about God's engine and burnt veins, but they tasered him mid-sprint. He went down, convulsing, still screaming. I was interviewed by 2 separate officers, gave my statement, described everything in nauseating detail. They told me later that the man was high out of his mind, PCP, bath salts, meth, maybe all 3. He had no weapons, just his fists and his madness. No one knew who Mary was. The woman he punched had a shattered nose and concussion. The man he tackled needed facial reconstruction surgery. One of the older men had a fractured collarbone. I only know this because I checked the local paper obsessively for weeks. I couldn't sleep for days afterward. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw that man's face, his bulging eyes, his blood-slick smile. I could still hear the woman's skull cracking against the concrete. I still do sometimes. I stopped going to Supermart altogether. I started ordering everything online, took self-defense classes, carried pepper spray like a teenager. Even now, years later, I keep one eye on every person I pass in a parking lot, always wondering what their story is, what's ticking behind their eyes, what they hear when no one else is listening. People say horror is in ghosts, demons, the things that creep through walls at night. They're wrong. Horror is a parking lot under sodium lights. Horror is a stranger who snaps for no reason. Horror is aisle 14, where a woman never made it inside for her groceries. And horror is knowing no one will stop it before it happens again. I never wanted to work retail, but life has a way of humbling you. Rent doesn't care about your pride, and neither does an empty fridge. After dropping out of community college and bouncing between babysitting gigs, I ended up clocking in at Martin's Supercenter, a 24-hour big box store in the middle of River's Edge, the kind of town with more deer than people and just enough bus routes to keep you dependent. At first, I thought I'd hate it. I didn't. The routine was predictable. Scan, bag, smile, repeat. The customers were forgettable, except for the ones who weren't. It started on a slow Tuesday. I was working register 3, wiping down the belt between customers. My legs ached from the early shift, and I was debating whether to risk the gas station sushi on my break. That's when he walked in. Big guy, probably over 6 feet. Muscular, broad shoulders under a stained flannel shirt. His boots were heavy, every step echoed. He didn't look homeless, but he didn't look clean either. His hair was greasy, slicked back but failing. Eyes sunken, like he hadn't slept in days. He came up to my register with nothing in hand. I gave the usual greeting. "Hi there. Can I help you find something?" No response. He stood there, motionless, arms at his sides, just being. There was no focus in his eyes, no trace of acknowledgement. 10 seconds passed, maybe 12. Then without a word, he turned and walked straight out of the store. I didn't even get a chance to ask what that was about. I mentioned it to the floor supervisor, Derek, who half joked, "Sounds like your biggest fan." I laughed, but I didn't like the way my stomach clenched. About 2 hours later, I got assigned bathroom cleaning. I hate cleaning the men's room, it's always worse. But I didn't argue. I was just finishing up, mop bucket by the door, when someone pushed it open. It was him. Same flannel, same heavy boots. He stepped inside, eyes darting around, and stopped when he saw me. I straightened up fast. "Oh, sorry," I said, trying to sound casual. "I'll just be out of your way in a second." He didn't answer. I grabbed my mop and moved toward the door. He moved with me, blocking the frame, just standing there again. Those same 10 seconds stretched like forever. I gripped the mop handle, ready to swing if I had to. My pulse thundered in my ears, and then he stepped aside. I didn't say anything. I left. Fast. He stayed in the bathroom for 30 minutes. Derek had to knock to get him out. When he finally exited, he left the store again. No purchases, no words. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe he was mentally ill. Maybe he was just awkward. Maybe I was the problem, being too sensitive, letting one strange interaction snowball into fear. But then he came back. An hour later, there he was, pacing the front aisle near the customer service desk. This time he picked up a bunch of random things, socks, a flashlight, canned soup, and went through another register. Didn't say a word to the cashier, paid in exact cash, then left all the items on the counter and walked out again. Didn't even look back. I asked the manager to pull the footage, just to be safe. He brushed it off. Unless he steals something or makes a threat, there's nothing to report. Let security know if he comes back. Security at Martin's was one tired guy named Tony, who played Candy Crush behind the camera screens. I didn't feel much safer. I hoped that was the end of it. It wasn't. About 2 weeks passed. I'd mostly forgotten about him. I got scheduled for a late shift, 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. The walk home was just 4 blocks, and I liked the quiet of the night air. I always waited at the Route 19 bus stop on the corner, even though I didn't ride it. I used it as a landmark for my roommate to pick me up sometimes. That night I walked out, hoodie zipped to my chin, earbuds in, and stood under the flickering street lamp. I felt him before I saw him. That presence, that weight of someone watching you. I turned my head. He was already standing there, right next to me, like he'd been waiting. I froze. He didn't say anything. Didn't look at me. just stood, perfectly still, facing the road. No bus came. We waited like that for 10 whole minutes. My hands were shaking in my pockets, phone clenched in one like a lifeline. Then the bus pulled up, brakes squealing. I stepped forward instinctively. He didn't move. I got on. He didn't. The doors hissed shut. I looked out the window. He was walking away. I didn't go straight home that night. I stayed on the bus until it looped back to the depot, just in case. 3 weeks passed. I avoided late shifts, traded with co-workers, made excuses. I never saw him again until I did. It was a sunny Friday. I had the morning off. I was walking back from the laundromat, earbuds in, headphones off one ear, when a cluster of sirens exploded down the street. I turned, 6 police cruisers, lights flashing, a man on the ground, cops yelling, "Hands behind your back." One of them had a taser out, and in the center of it all, him, face down, cuffed, struggling. His flannel shirt was ripped. His hands were bleeding. They shoved him into the back of the car, and for a moment, as the cruiser passed me, his eyes met mine through the window. No anger, no shock, just the same blank, unreadable nothingness. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. Not really. A few weeks later, a detective came into the store asking questions. Turned out he had no ID on him when arrested, no home address, no known family. He had 3 burner phones, all wiped clean. They said he had been seen sleeping behind the old church downtown, sometimes in the cemetery. There were reports he'd been casing houses. One woman said he knocked on her door at 3 a.m. and just stood there, staring. They found a notebook in his backpack. My name was in it, and my schedule. I switched jobs after that, moved out of River's Edge. I never found out what he wanted, but I've learned to pay attention to the quiet people, the ones who stand too still, the ones who don't speak, the ones who only need 10 seconds. I hadn't planned on going. Tailgate parties weren't really my thing. Too loud, too much cheap beer, and always someone who didn't know how to handle their liquor. But it had been a long week. A brutal one, honestly. Work had been a mess. My car had nearly died on the interstate, and my phone was full of calls I didn't want to answer from an ex who didn't understand the word done. So when my friend Zach texted me, "Tailgate at Wally Lot, Lot 9. Everyone's coming. Don't flake." I stared at it a long minute before tossing on a hoodie and heading out. I figured I'd swing by, have a drink, maybe clear my head. The Walmart was closed, had been since 10. Lot 9 sat off to the far side, near the garden center, where no one ever parked during business hours. That made it the perfect unofficial party zone. By the time I rolled in, the place was buzzing. Trucks lined up in a haphazard horseshoe, camp chairs folded open, LED strips glowing from open tailgates. Music bumped from Bluetooth speakers. Someone had a small fire pit going in the bed of their truck, which I was sure wasn't legal, but no one seemed to care. I parked a little away from the crowd, grabbed a warm IPA from my back seat and walked over. Familiar faces, hugs, handshakes, laughter, just what I needed. Zach clapped me on the back and handed me a hot dog wrapped in tinfoil. "Didn't flake. I'm shocked," he grinned. "Only because I ran out of reasons to be alone tonight," I muttered, taking a bite. That was when I saw him, standing near the corner of the group, not talking to anyone, not drinking, just watching. Big dude. Built like a linebacker, late 30s, maybe early 40s. Tank top despite the cold, a thin red line across his knuckles like he'd punched something recently. He wasn't smiling, wasn't blinking much either. I tried to ignore it. Went back to chatting, laughing at dumb jokes, letting the alcohol smooth my nerves. About 15 minutes later, he approached me. Didn't say hi. Didn't smile. Just stood next to me and stared for a second too long. "You ever think about how fragile a face is?" he asked out of nowhere. I blinked. No man. Can't say I have." He laughed, low and dry. I have. A lot. You punch someone just right, and you can watch the lights go out. Just like that. Snap of a switch, nothing personal, just power. I felt my stomach twist. I smiled awkwardly, glancing over toward Zach, who was too busy play wrestling with some girl to notice. Right. Well, hey, I'm just gonna... You know what's wild? He cut in. I don't even know their names. Just walk up, say hey, and boom. He made a quick punching gesture. One guy crumpled like a napkin. I couldn't tell if he was joking or serious. That's what made it worse. He was calm. Too calm. And then he added, helps when I'm C'd out. You know what I mean. I didn't. He grinned again. Crystal, ice, meth. Got a head full of TV static and a fist like a freight train. Oh. He tilted his head. You're a quiet one. I like that. Not all bark. You seem like a good listener. I nodded, too quickly. Just here to chill, man. Same, he said. Chill. And maybe blow off a little steam. The firelight flickered across his eyes, and for half a second I saw something raw behind them. Not anger, not sadness. Something hollow. My girl left me last week, he said next. Took my dog, my stereo. Said I was toxic. I told her I wasn't toxic, I was honest. People can't handle honesty anymore. He turned and looked at me hard. You honest? Sure, I said. My throat was dry. Then you'll tell me. You think I'm crazy? This was a trap. I knew it. I'd watched enough people try to de-escalate situations like this in gas station videos and fail. No, I think you're going through it. Breakups are hard, I said, inching my way toward the crowd. But things'll get better, yeah? He smiled, not at me. At the thought. You're my bro, right? My mouth moved before my brain. Yeah, man. Of course. He stuck out a massive hand. I shook it because I didn't know what else to do. His grip lingered a second too long. To the fish in the sea, he said, raising a non-existent glass. Sure, cheers. I peeled away then, moved toward Zach, kept the guy in the corner of my eye for the rest of the night. But that wasn't the end. 2 nights later, I was heading out of the gas station on 5th and Holloway when I saw him again. Just standing across the street by the abandoned KFC, staring at the lights, hands in his pockets, same tank top, same expression. I pretended not to notice. I walked fast. The next day, I got a friend request on Facebook from a profile with no name, just a photo of cracked pavement and the words, "To the fish in the sea." I blocked it, but the following week, I found a handwritten note under my windshield at work. Quiet ones always know when to keep a secret. Bros keep each other safe. My stomach dropped. Zach didn't take it seriously when I told him. Neither did my boss. Probably just a prank, they said. You said it was a party, right? People joke around. But it didn't feel like a joke, especially not when I saw him again, this time at the local diner while I was having lunch. He didn't come in, just stood across the street, staring. It escalated when someone keyed the side of my car. Deep gouges, like someone used a knife. No note, no witnesses, just silence. Then, I started hearing tapping at my apartment window, 3 floors up. I live alone. One night I came home to find my door unlocked. Nothing missing, just open. Another night my power went out, only mine. Everyone else in the complex had lights. I called the cops after that, filed a report. They told me they'd keep an eye out. I doubted it. Without a name, a face, anything more concrete, it was just a weird story from a paranoid guy. The last time I saw him was in a different parking lot altogether. I was pulling into the strip mall for groceries, sun going down, parking lot half full. I saw him sitting on the curb in front of the closed-down GameStop. When I stepped out of my car, he stood. Didn't move toward me. Just stood. Then he called out, "Still got that punch in me." Wonder what it'd feel like if I missed this time. I didn't say a word. I got back in my car and drove. I didn't even look in the rear view. It's been months now. I moved apartments, changed jobs, stopped going to that Walmart, stopped going to most places. My social life died. I tell people I'm just focusing on myself, but the truth is, I still see him. Not every day, not up close. Sometimes it's a shape near a dumpster. Sometimes it's a parked car with no one inside. Until I look again and he's in the driver's seat, watching. Sometimes I dream about him, about the way he talked, that raw emptiness in his voice. Sometimes I wonder if he's still out there, watching someone else now, or if I'm just waiting for him to come back. Because the worst part isn't that he scared me. The worst part is that I believed him. About the punch, about the thrill, about the emptiness. I believed it. And I think part of me still waits to see if he'll show me what it feels like. I didn't mind working alone. That was the appeal, really. No boss breathing down my neck, no annoying coworkers, no long lines of customers demanding things. Just me, my car, a clipboard nobody checked, and an old Walmart that hadn't seen a customer in 3 years. They'd shut it down after a new supercenter opened a few miles away. Some construction company bought the lease and used it as a glorified storage unit. Piles of scaffolding, tools, bags of concrete, all kept behind bolted emergency exits and dented garage doors. My job, officially, was night security watch, but in practice, I sat in my car from dusk until dawn, logging half-hearted rounds and trying not to fall asleep. The Walmart itself looked exactly how you'd expect a dead store to look. Rows of broken lights buzzing, windows fogged from the inside, the once familiar blue letters long faded and flaking. Even the greeter's mat was still outside the front doors, weathered and frayed. I'd been doing this for about 2 months. No real incidents. A couple of kids tried to sneak around the side one night with spray paint, but they bolted when they saw me pull up. Otherwise, it was dull, quiet, until that night. It was late March, just past midnight. Cold enough that my breath fogged the windshield, and I kept the engine running to use the heater in short bursts. I had the car parked near the front entrance, facing the old automatic doors, sipping lukewarm gas station coffee and watching condensation trail down the glass. And then I saw her. Out of the dark, from between 2 concrete pillars near the side of the building, a woman walked out. She wasn't just walking. She was moving carefully. Every few steps, she'd freeze and scan the lot like she was expecting something to jump out at her. Her head was on a swivel, like prey in an open field. And what she was wearing, no shoes, just a thin white tank top, spaghetti straps barely clinging to her shoulders, and short faded pajama shorts. Her arms were wrapped around herself and she was shaking. Not the kind of shivering you do when you're chilly, but violent, involuntary trembling. It was 37 degrees that night. At first, I just stared. I blinked hard, thinking maybe I was seeing things, some exhausted brain glitch. But she kept moving, hugging the shadows, darting behind one of the thick front columns of the old store. That was the first alarm bell. The second came when I noticed the car, a dark Honda sedan, creeping through the far end of the parking lot. Headlights off, slow, real slow, like it was searching for something or someone. I realized she'd spotted it before I had. She positioned herself behind the column perfectly, like she'd done this before. Every time the Honda inched forward, she shifted just enough to keep the pillar between herself and the car. It was practiced, not random panic, controlled hiding. My gut flipped. I killed my headlights and stepped out of the car. Gravel crunched under my boots as I made my way toward her. I didn't want to scare her, so I kept my voice low but clear. "You okay? You need help?" Her head shot around the pillar, big eyes, red and wide. She looked right at me. Not just at me, but through me. There was no hesitation when she ran over. She didn't check the lot again. She just sprinted toward me like I was the last safe place on earth. "I need you to call the cops," she gasped. Please, 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 just call them. Don't let them see me. Her voice cracked on the word please, not begging, terror, like the kind of scared that short-circuits your body. I fumbled for my phone and started dialing 911. That's when the Honda came back, same car, same crawl. But this time with its headlights on, dimmed, slow, sweeping across the pavement like a searchlight. And I saw the change in her. She froze, then shook her head quickly, panic all over her face. No, stop. Please, don't get involved. It's okay. What? I asked, still holding the phone. You just asked me to call. I shouldn't have. It's better if you don't. It's better. She took a step back, then another, and then she turned around and walked back across the lot toward the Honda. The car stopped. The passenger door opened. She got in, and it drove off. I stood there long after the sound of the tires faded into the night. I didn't finish the 911 call, I just stood, and I hated myself for it. I sat in the car the rest of the night trying to figure out what the hell I'd just seen. I wrote down the make and model. Didn't catch the plate. Too dark, wrong angle. But I logged it anyway just in case. I kept thinking, what if she was a trafficking victim? What if she ran and they were tracking her and I just handed her back to them because she said, don't get involved? But what if it was something else? An abusive boyfriend? A drug deal gone bad? A mental health crisis? There was no screaming, no threats, just fear, just her eyes. I didn't sleep the next day. I stayed up and Googled everything I could. Local missing persons, police logs, arrest records, hospital intakes. Nothing. No reports that matched. I even called in an anonymous tip, gave them the description, told them what I saw. They said they'd look into it. I never heard anything back. I kept going back to work. Same shift, same Walmart. But after that night, I couldn't park in the same spot. Couldn't look at the concrete pillars without thinking about her hiding there, barefoot and trembling, begging me with her eyes not to get involved. A few nights later, I found a single flip-flop on the curb near the east loading dock, child-sized, worn. I threw it away and never told anyone. 3 weeks later, my supervisor asked if I wanted to pick up a different site. Said they had an opening at a car dealership, more traffic, better lighting, better pay. I said yes without thinking. I never told him why I wanted to leave that Walmart, but I think about her. Still, every time I see a car with its headlights off, every time I pass an old store that's falling apart at the seams, she's always there, darting behind the pillar, watching the parking lot like her life depends on it. And I wonder if she made it out, or if I watched her walk back into hell and did nothing. I hadn't even clocked in when it started. The early August heat in Arizona was already pressing against my skin like a hot sponge, and it wasn't even 10 a.m. yet. I was wearing one of those bright neon yellow vests they handed out to volunteers, holding a walkie clipped to my belt that didn't seem to pick up anything but static. The regional back-to-school charity event had been planned for months. Free backpacks, discounted supplies, a few food trucks parked on the side of the parking lot, and a small stage where a local high school band was supposed to play. I'd volunteered because it was technically overtime, and as a part-time associate who'd been pulling extra shifts in lawn and garden, I needed every cent I could scrape. Rent had just gone up. Again. My name's Riley. I'm 29th, college dropout, working retail since 19. Not much more to say except I've learned that working around the public long enough teaches you how fast a situation can turn. That morning, I was assigned to direct foot and car traffic in the parking lot of the Super Value Mart on Bell Canyon Road, an old Walmart-style supercenter rebranded a few years ago after corporate restructuring. It was busy. I mean shoulder-to-shoulder strollers, crying toddlers, annoyed dads, moms with clipboards kind of busy. And then I heard yelling. It started as a loud male voice, maybe 25, 30 feet from my position near the parking lot's second row. At first, I ignored it. You hear people yell all the time, over parking spaces, over sunscreen prices, whatever. But something about the tone cut through the background noise like a blade. Ragged, aggressive, slurred. I looked over and saw a man, mid-30s, scruffy beard, maybe 6'2" and bulky, screaming near a blue SUV. His arms were flailing, and I could see the veins in his neck from where I stood. A woman was locked inside the vehicle with a toddler in the back seat. She looked terrified, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The man slammed both hands against the driver's side window and roared something I couldn't make out. The woman didn't even flinch. She just kept staring straight ahead, like if she didn't acknowledge him, he'd stop. People were slowing down, whispering. A few hurried away, dragging kids by the wrist. I hesitated. I'm not trained in de-escalation. I'm not security. But no one else was doing a thing. I took a breath and approached, trying not to look like I was approaching. The closer I got, the more I noticed he reeked of alcohol, maybe something stronger, and his face was blotchy like he'd been screaming for a long time. "Hey, man," I said carefully. "You okay?" He spun around, startled, and the rage in his eyes hit me like a gust of wind. His eyes were wide, bloodshot. There was spittle in his beard. "Back the fuck off," he growled. "This doesn't concern you." "I hear you," I said quickly, hands raised. "You're upset. I get it. No judgment here, just trying to keep folks safe." He narrowed his eyes at me. "Don't stand between me and my family. I swear to God." "I'm not, I promise," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Just maybe take a step back. Let's breathe for a second. I'm Riley. What's your name?" That's a trick I learned working here. Get people to say their name. Sometimes it grounds them. Sometimes it reminds them they're human. He didn't answer. He took a half step toward me, and I instinctively stepped back, guiding him maybe 10 or 15 feet away from the SUV. I kept talking. Random things. About the heat, about traffic. Anything to keep him looking at me instead of that vehicle. Behind him, the woman saw her chance. She started the car. He heard the engine. He spun, screamed, and lunged, and I watched in horror as he jumped onto the moving SUV's hood. The vehicle jerked forward with a screech. Families screamed and scattered. For a moment, the image burned into my brain. This man sprawled across the hood, pounding the windshield with his fist, while a child cried inside. I ran in front of the car. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just knew that if she kept driving with him up there, she could hit someone, a stroller, a group of kids. I waved my arms like a lunatic. "Stop! Please, stop!" The car stopped, barely. I turned toward him. "You gotta come down, man. This isn't helping. Think about your kid. What would he say if he saw this?" He glared at me, seething. For a second, I thought he might leap at me. But slowly, so slowly, he slid off the hood and stumbled onto the pavement. The SUV started to reverse, trying to escape. That's when he ran to the back passenger door and yanked it open. "No!" I shouted and sprinted toward him. He was grabbing at the car seat, trying to unbuckle a toddler, maybe 2.5 years old, who was screaming and pushing at him. I wedged myself between the door and his body, using my shoulder to pin him in place. "Let go of him!" I yelled, straining against him. He shoved back hard, fists flying wild. I barely held on. Out of nowhere, 2 random dads who'd been standing near the food trucks came charging over. One was tall and wiry, the other stocky with tattoos up both arms. They grabbed his arms and pulled him back, wrestling him away from the door. I slammed it shut and signaled the SUV to drive. This time, she didn't hesitate. She peeled out of the lot, the toddler safe inside. The man thrashed against us, spitting curses and threats, trying to kick. My heart was pounding so loud I couldn't hear my own thoughts. "I'm gonna kill you," he screamed. "You're dead, you hear me? That's my son." My walkie finally crackled. "Unit 3, status check. Riley, you good?" I fumbled for the button. "We need security, now. Possible domestic, male aggressor, attempted abduction. We've got him restrained, but he's not calming down." Copy. Officers en route. I could barely process what happened over the next 10 minutes. Security arrived first. 2 guys, one older, one new. They tried to take over, but he decked one of them right in the nose. Blood sprayed. A fight broke out. The man threw wild punches as all 4 of us tried to pin him without hurting him. He was strong, fueled by whatever adrenaline or substances were keeping him going. Finally, we got him face down, arms behind his back. He kept screaming. It took the cops 15 more minutes to arrive. They'd been rerouted from another call. When they finally cuffed him and hauled him away, I felt my knees buckle. I gave a statement, got subpoenaed. Then I never heard anything else. I was told he pled out before trial. That was it. No closure. I don't know what his story was. Abuse, custody battle, drugs, all of it. I don't know what happened to the woman or that child. I never saw them again. But I think about them. A lot. Especially when I hear yelling in the parking lot. I never thought I'd miss the sound of pallet jacks slamming against the floor, or the tinny looping version of Here Comes the Sun played over Walmart's intercom. But there are worse sounds, gunshots echoing off tile, and a scream I still hear in my sleep. Back then I worked at a Walmart in the outskirts of Chestnut Ridge, Missouri. Not the prettiest town, not the safest either, but the kind of place where folks still nodded hello in parking lots and knew your kids' names by heart. I was 25, living paycheck to paycheck just like everyone else under those fluorescent lights. Lawn and garden was my domain during the warmer months, but during winter they rotated me into the main store. That's how I ended up on shift the day everything changed. I remember the start of that week clear as a bell. It was cold enough to chap your lips just stepping outside. I'd just gotten back from break when my supervisor, Darren, called a morning huddle. We were short-staffed again. Someone called out, and I got moved to the front, close to customer service. That's where I first saw him. Her name was Kendra Wallace. She was one of those people you couldn't help but like. Calm, always wore a long braid down her back, and had the kind of voice that made irate customers simmer down. We'd gotten close over the last few months, mainly through venting in the break room and running into each other outside on smoke breaks. Her ex-husband, Eli Wallace, came in just after noon on a Thursday. At first, I didn't recognize him. Just another man in a weather-beaten Carhartt jacket with wild eyes and grease-stained jeans. It wasn't until Kendra's face went white that I made the connection. She turned sharply, nearly knocking over the display of Valentine's candy. "I told you to stop coming here," she hissed, barely above a whisper. "I just want to talk," Eli said, hands tucked deep in his pockets. "You're not supposed to be here, Eli. You know you're not." That wasn't just a marital spat. That was terror in her voice. Kendra had once told me bits and pieces about her divorce. Eli had owned a contracting business that had gone belly up. She said he was reckless with money, drank too much, always looking for an angle. She never told me everything, but I knew there'd been fires, 3 to be exact, and that the insurance had somehow paid out. After the 3rd, something broke loose. Investigators got involved. Kendra found out the truth and cooperated. "I didn't know," she said once, choking back tears in the break room. "But when I did, I had to tell the truth. He was going to go down anyway." She filed for divorce after he got indicted. Back in the store, Kendra tried to walk away, but Eli grabbed her wrist, gentle at first, then firmer. I saw her wince. "Let go of me," she said. "You don't understand what I've lost, Kendra. You took everything." That's when he said it. "I have a gun." Everything went still. I was only a few steps away, behind the counter at the photo center, frozen in place. Kendra yanked free and bolted, not toward the manager's office or the back of the store, but toward the front restroom, the women's, just left of the entrance near the carts. Maybe she panicked. Maybe it was instinct. It was the worst possible place, no way out except through the front. He followed her. I wanted to do something. I really did. But all I managed to do was fumble for my walkie and say, "Code Adam at the front women's restroom. Man with a weapon. Lock the doors." Someone screamed. Shoppers began backing away. A mother clutched her toddler and ducked behind a display of toilet paper. Panic started to ripple out. Darren came running out from the back. "Get everyone out now," he barked. And then a sound I'll never forget. The automatic doors whooshing shut as corporate lockdown kicked in. Inside that bathroom, it was a different world. There was another woman in there, Maya from electronics. She had come in just to retie her shoes. She told us later she froze when Kendra burst in and Eli followed. He pulled the gun out slowly, crying as he did it. "I lost everything," he sobbed. "I just wanted to talk. I just wanted her to listen." He never pointed the gun at Maya. She said he told her, "Get out of here. This ain't about you." She left, barefoot, left her shoes behind, and ran straight into a manager's arms, sobbing. The police showed up fast. Chestnut Ridge isn't a big place. The station's maybe 5 blocks away. Within 15 minutes, the building was surrounded. The lot filled with patrol cars, rifles drawn. A negotiator started calling through a bullhorn, but Eli didn't respond. I was still inside, helping customers evacuate through the garden-side fire exit. We moved as quickly as we could, but the store is big, like a maze when you're panicked. Kendra's voice came through the walkie next. "He says he knows he's going to prison. He says it's over. She was still alive. She was talking. That was something." Then came a crackling reply from a sergeant outside. "Tell him we just want to talk. Nobody has to get hurt." 10 seconds later, we heard the shot. It echoed through the store like a thunderclap. Everything stopped. Even the birds that always nested in the rafters went silent. SWAT stormed in, expecting the worst. What they found was Eli slumped against the stall divider, his body still pinning Kendra to the cold tile floor. She was shaking but alive. She had blood all over her uniform. Her scream didn't come until they tried to lift him off her. That's when it all hit her. The media story was short. Disturbed ex-husband, suicide, no other injuries. But they left out the crucial parts. They didn't say how Kendra had bruises on her arms for weeks. They didn't say how I stayed on the phone with her for hours that night, just listening to her breathe. They didn't mention how Walmart sent her a fruit basket and offered paid leave for a month, before quietly letting her position get absorbed into a corporate restructuring. They didn't mention how she tried to come back 6 weeks later, but couldn't even walk through the front doors. We both quit within a few months. I moved 2 states over, started fresh. But I still keep in touch with Kendra. She's in therapy twice a week now, working at a smaller local store. Last I heard, she's thinking of getting a therapy dog. Says the silence at night is still the worst part. I've never looked at public restrooms the same way again, because you'd never expect it to happen in a place like Walmart. Not in the middle of the day. Not with someone you worked next to for 6 months. Not with a guy who used to bring in donuts for her on Fridays when they were married. You can't see trauma walking through the door. You don't know what people are hiding under heavy jackets or soft smiles. We joke about crazy customers and annoying coworkers, but some people are walking around with fuse wires in their heads, waiting for the spark. That day, I realized we don't work retail. We survive it. Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I was 27 the year I agreed to help out a former professor by guest lecturing for a week in Birmingham, Alabama. It wasn't a big university or anything fancy, just a community college that needed someone to fill in for a few behavioral psych courses while their regular instructor was out recovering from surgery. I figured why not? Free trip, free meals, and a chance to hang out with my old college buddy Kyle. We hadn't seen each other since graduation 4 years earlier, and he lived just 20 minutes from the school. Kyle and I used to be close. Roommates for 2 years back in Tennessee, stayed up playing Xbox until sunrise, burning frozen pizzas and talking about what we'd do with our lives. He ended up in supply chain management. Not exciting, but steady work. He was renting a decent 2-bedroom apartment just outside the city near a gas station, a vape shop, and, conveniently, a 24-hour Walmart that sat 5 blocks away. "You can crash here," he said when I called to ask about hotels. "I'll clean the guest room. Still got that mattress you helped me haul up 3 flights of stairs back in 2006. It didn't take much convincing. The plan was simple. I'd lecture from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. Kyle worked second shift and got home around midnight. We'd hang out, unwind, maybe grab food. Honestly, the nostalgia of staying up late like we used to was kind of comforting. The first night we didn't do much. He rolled in around 12:30 a.m., tossed his keys on the counter, kicked off his boots, and cracked a beer. I was half asleep on the couch watching Planet Earth. "Still a night owl, huh?" He laughed. "Only when someone else buys the drinks," I shot back. We caught up for a couple of hours, played a few rounds of Mario Kart on his dusty old Wii, and ended up hungry around 2 a.m. "I usually hit the Walmart around the corner," he said, already grabbing his keys. "They restock shelves overnight. Kinda peaceful in there, actually." I shrugged. "Let's go." That first trip felt like any other grocery run. Quiet store, barely staffed. Fluorescent lights buzzing above empty aisles. We wandered through the frozen food section, tossing in burritos and Red Baron pizzas, then stopped at the snack aisle arguing over what chips to get. It was calm, familiar, nostalgic even. We ended up doing the same thing the next 2 nights. We'd game until we were baked out of our minds, then get the munchies around 1:30 or 2, walk the quiet streets to the Walmart like it was some late-night pilgrimage, load up on junk food, then crash around 4 a.m. It became a ritual. Thursday night was different. Kyle got home later than usual, closer to 1:15 a.m. He looked stressed. "Rough shift?" I asked. He nodded, rubbing his face. "Someone busted a dock door trying to back in blind. Spent 2 hours helping the guy fill out reports. I'm dead." "You still down for Walmart?" He hesitated, then grinned. "Yeah, why not? I need more coffee and eggs anyway." So we headed out. It was colder than usual. I remember that specifically. The kind of sharp, silent cold where you could hear the crunch of gravel under your sneakers like it was echoing off the clouds. The parking lot was empty except for 2 cars. One beat-up sedan near the front doors, and a white van parked diagonally across 3 spots on the far side, back-facing the loading docks. "Nice parking job," I muttered. Kyle glanced at it. "That van's been here before. Same spot. You notice that?" I work nights. I notice everything. Inside, the store was dead quiet. No music, just the hum of refrigerators and a dull buzzing overhead. We grabbed a basket and made our way to frozen foods again. The first weird thing happened in the bread aisle. We passed an older guy, maybe late 50s, long beard, camo jacket. He wasn't shopping. Just standing there, hands in his coat pockets, staring down the aisle like he forgot why he was there. Kyle gave him a polite nod. The guy didn't react. I whispered, "Friendly neighborhood cryptid." Kyle smirked, but said nothing. By the time we hit the snack aisle, the air felt off. I know how that sounds, too vague to be helpful, but it's the best way I can describe it. Like walking into a room just after someone had a fight. Charged. Still. I was looking at some cheddar jalapeno chips when I noticed a guy at the end of the aisle. He wasn't browsing, just watching. Late 30s, buzz cut, dark hoodie, baggy jeans, pale. His arms were stiff at his sides, and his eyes were locked directly on us. At first I thought maybe I was in his way or something. I half smiled and gave a quick, "Hey." No reaction. I turned back to the shelf. Then Kyle said quietly, "There's another one behind us." I glanced over my shoulder. Sure enough, at the other end of the aisle stood a second guy. This one skinnier, taller, wearing a beanie and denim jacket. He wasn't looking at us. He was staring past us, directly at the first guy. "What the hell's going on?" I muttered. "They're not looking at us," Kyle said. I looked back and forth again. He was right. They were looking at each other, and neither of them blinked. "Let's bounce," Kyle whispered. I didn't argue. We turned to exit the aisle and took maybe 3 steps before I heard it. A voice, calm, cold. "You know why I'm here." I froze. The voice came from behind us, from the hoodie guy. Then came a second voice, flat and low. "You don't want to do this." A pause. Then almost simultaneously both of them moved. One guy reached into his waistband. The other ducked low. "Down!" I shouted, pulling Kyle with me. Population pop, pop, pop. Gunfire erupted, sharp and loud and somehow distant at the same time, like thunder in a tunnel. I hit the tile hard, my right elbow slamming into the floor as I dragged Kyle down with me. A bag of Doritos exploded above us, orange bits raining down. The aisle was chaos. Chips flying, shelves rattling, metal clanging. Kyle was yelling, something I couldn't make out over the ringing in my ears. We crawled. Instinct took over. I pulled us around the end cap and behind a display of laundry baskets. A bullet shattered a bottle behind us. Detergent spilled across the floor. Another volley of shots, 4, maybe 5, then silence. And then, footsteps, fast, fading. Someone was running. We didn't move. Not for what felt like minutes. Then we heard the fire exit alarm blare from the back of the store. Someone else ran. The second guy. Kyle finally spoke, voice cracking. Jesus Christ, I was still on the floor, my hands shaking. My elbow throbbed from the fall. "You good?" I asked, my own voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. "You?" I nodded back. We slowly stood up. The aisle looked like a war zone. Chips scattered, glass broken, black smears on the linoleum that might have been from someone's shoes. Or something worse. We made our way toward the front, keeping low, moving fast. A cashier we hadn't seen before burst out from behind the customer service counter. She was in tears, on her radio with someone, presumably her manager. We told her what we saw. She pointed toward the emergency exit and said the cops were already on the way. We stepped out into the cold air, ears still ringing. By the time the sirens came, the parking lot was lit up red and blue. 6, maybe 7 cruisers pulled in within minutes. An officer rushed us toward the perimeter and started asking questions. Descriptions, clothes, direction of travel, any weapons. We told them everything. They found 1 shell casing in the snack aisle, blood drops near the fire exit, but no bodies. One of the officers told us off the record that it looked like the guy in the hoodie might have taken one to the side but kept running. No trail to follow. The other one disappeared completely, likely out the front. I later learned from Kyle that the Walmart shut down overnight for 3 days after that. Management brought in counselors for the night staff. They put up some vague corporate poster about valuing safety and resilience, but no arrests, no follow-up, just gone. Kyle and I didn't go back. I flew home after my last lecture the next day, but I still think about it. A lot. It changed something in me. Not in some dramatic movie-like way. Just a quiet, constant tension. Whenever I walk into a 24-hour store now, I glance at the ends of every aisle. I scan people's hands. I never wear headphones. I never let my guard drop the way I did that night. And every time I hear a bag of chips crinkle too loud, I flinch. In a town where people disappear quietly, no one really notices when a man starts to rot. I never wanted to work retail again. After 3 years in logistics and 1 miserable stint at a call center, I told myself I was done with fluorescent lights and clock watching. But rent's rent, and when I lost my job last fall, desperation pushed me back behind a blue vest. That's how I ended up as a floor associate at East Bend Supercenter, basically a rebranded Walmart clone just outside Greenwood, Indiana. I was assigned to dry goods and pharmacy overflow, which meant I stocked shelves and fielded random questions about allergy meds I wasn't qualified to answer. Most of the time, the job was mindless. People in pajamas asking where the melatonin was, couples fighting over shampoo brands, crying kids throwing Skittles into the cart. None of it fazed me anymore. But what happened one Tuesday in early March is something I will never forget. Something that even as I type this out feels like a memory from a nightmare. It started like any other dead shift afternoon. 3:45 p.m. I was zoning an aisle in the health section, front-facing boxes so they look full. Everything felt ordinary. Fluorescent lights buzzing, a kid screaming somewhere near toys, the faint beeping of registers from the front. I was alone in aisle 16, adult diapers, heating pads, Epsom salts. It was one of those long, empty stretches of time where I could feel my brain turning to oatmeal. I had headphones in one ear, listening to a podcast, true crime, ironically, when I smelled something. It was foul, like rotting meat left in the sun mixed with old sewage and something chemical, the kind of smell that hits you in the back of the throat. I gagged a little, pulled my shirt collar over my nose and looked around. I thought maybe something spilled, or maybe someone's kid had an accident. Then I heard footsteps, slow, uneven, one heel dragging slightly like the person couldn't lift it fully. A man turned the corner into the aisle. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches or 6 feet 3 inches, and gaunt, with a long face and deep sunken eyes. His hoodie was oversized and grimy, sleeves fraying at the cuffs. Cargo pants that looked more like curtains than clothing hung loose around his frame. His left shoe was a boot, but the right foot was wrapped in what looked like layers of stained fabric or gauze. I instinctively stepped aside, plastered on a polite, customer service smile. But he didn't even look at me, just trudged forward, leaving behind that stench like a trail of invisible rot. I caught myself thinking something cruel. Jesus, man, take a damn shower. But then I saw his hand gripping the cart. His fingernails were black around the edges, not from dirt but something darker, as if the tissue underneath was dying. The skin on his knuckles was tight and shiny, stretched over bones like wax paper. That's when I realized something was really wrong with him. A month earlier, a different associate had quit without notice after finding a guy passed out behind the pet aisle. Turned out he was high and had shoplifted a bottle of cough syrup, then chugged it on the spot. It's not uncommon. East Bend gets its share of drifters, and our proximity to the freeway makes it a stopover for all kinds of people. But this man, he wasn't high. He wasn't belligerent. He wasn't talking to himself or shouting. He was focused, determined, walking like he had one thing on his mind and nothing else mattered. He turned into the short aisle leading to the pharmacy desk. I stayed where I was, but I could still see through the aisle end cap, vitamins and low-dose aspirin. There was a woman standing at the pharmacy counter ahead of him. She was holding a bottle of cough syrup and a prescription bag, chatting with the pharmacist, a petite woman named Jazz, who worked every Tuesday afternoon. I watched as the man got in line behind her, and the woman stiffened almost immediately. She half-turned, catching a whiff of whatever he was carrying with him. I saw her eyes twitch. She didn't say anything, but her lips pursed hard. When she got her stuff and hurried off, the man stepped up. And then everything changed. 5:01 p.m. I had drifted a little closer by then, pretending to check stock on the end cap. I couldn't hear all of it, but I saw Jazz lean forward slightly, her eyebrows knitting. She looked concerned. He seemed to be mumbling something, gesturing downward toward his leg. That's when he began rolling up his pant leg. Slow, deliberate, as if it took effort just to bend. Jazz leaned farther over the counter to look. I couldn't see his leg from where I stood at first, but I saw her reaction. She reeled back, covered her mouth, and in that moment everything in my gut twisted up. I moved toward the counter like I might need to help. I don't know why. It was just instinct. He peeled the cloth, gauze, sock, whatever, up past his calf. And that's when I saw it, a wound, Number, not a wound, a hole. A gaping, wet crater where the flesh of his lower leg should have been. It was discolored, yellowish gray with dark green edges and something white glistening deep inside. I still don't know if that was bone or tendon. Flies buzzed around it. I hadn't even noticed until that moment. The smell, oh God, the smell, hit me again, stronger than before, like raw meat and ammonia and hot garbage. I stumbled backward, gagging, and almost dropped the vitamins I was holding. Jazz's voice rose. "Sir, you need to go to the hospital right now. This is serious. You could lose the leg. You could..." He shook his head, mumbled something again. "Sir, listen to me. You need an ambulance. This could be septic. Do you hear me? You could die from this." That was when I stepped forward. 5:04 p.m. "Hey man," I said gently, holding my phone out. "Do you want me to call someone? An ambulance, maybe?" He turned to me. His eyes were dull like waterlogged wood, and for a moment something flickered behind them. Not fear, not anger, just shame. "Don't," he said. His voice was low and raspy. "Please don't." Jazz spoke right over him. "Yes, call, do it. He's not thinking straight. His leg is necrotic." Necrotic. I'd only ever heard that word in zombie games. I didn't wait. I hit 911. As I gave the dispatcher our location, the man stared at me. Not with hatred, but with this pleading sadness, like a stray dog that knows it's about to be put down. Then, before I could react, he pulled his pant leg down, turned around, and walked away. Just like that. No yelling, no running. Just walking with that uneven limp, the boot thudding on the floor, the soft flap of whatever covered the other foot. Jazz shouted after him. I did too. But he didn't turn back. 5:07 p.m. The EMTs arrived about 10 minutes later. We showed them the security footage. They said based on the wound's appearance and the man's condition, he might not have made it through the night. The smell alone, they said, indicated advanced infection. They canvassed the lot, checked the bus stop, even talked to a couple panhandlers out front. But the man was gone. Vanished. For weeks after, I kept checking local news sites.